All right, everyone, welcome to the Thursday edition of Reality Check. And you know what that means. It is City Council Live. We do gavel-to-gavel coverage of the Philadelphia City Council on Thursdays, and that should be starting momentarily. We should be kicking off with the voice of Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark. That is happening very shortly, momentarily. They've been starting on time. They've been doing pretty good as far as this year is concerned and starting fairly punctually. With the session of the whole city council. That's typically on Thursdays, and we do that live on WURD, the home of Black Talk Media, 96.1 FM, 900 AM, wordradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app. I'm Charles Ellis, and I'm your anchor for City Council Live. So also, normally, your host, executive producer, also creator of Reality Check, your daily dose of public affairs. And you can also catch us on YouTube, youtube.com/onWURD, facebook.com/4WURD as well. You can watch us live, more on the city council. You know, I always encourage folks, while you're listening to the city council or you happen to catch it live, you know, you're catching them virtually because they're still in a virtual setting. They're still going to meet by Microsoft Teams. We are still in the middle of a pandemic. It is not ended yet. It is not official. You know, I know people are sort of letting their guard down in the middle of this pandemic. They really are, and we need not to. So the city council is being very careful, and they should continue to meet virtually, as most legislatures are doing, as most public policy or public officials, elected officials are doing. So we, you know, as you're doing that, as you're listening to the Philadelphia City Council, I encourage people to go to phlcouncil.com. That's a great guide to use while you're listening into the Philadelphia City Council. Now, as you hear the numbers of bills, and you know, we'll just get into the rhythm of sort of reminding listeners, reminding viewers about this every time we have or we hold City Council. As you're listening to the bills, you can go to phlcouncil.com. You see that navigation bar at the top of the web page or the website phlcouncil.com, and you see legislation and hearings. Scroll your mouse to legislation and hearings. You'll see a drop-down menu. Click on Legislative Information Center. That'll take you to phila.legistar.com. Now, that's a more direct way to go to where the copies of bills that are being introduced, that have been passed, etc. But it shows you the calendar, the city council calendar, all that good stuff. So that's also a more direct way to get there, is phila.legistar, and let me spell that. So it's phila.legistar.com, phila.legistar.com. And so I encourage people to go there to, and then you can go, you see the navigation bar at the top of that website, click on legislation. And when you click on it, you know, you see that open box where you can put in the number of the bill. And so put in the number of the bill this year, click search legislation, and then the copy of that bill will come up. So as I do highly recommend, particularly for those more avid listeners and viewers, or connoisseurs, if you will, of Philadelphia City Council, I really highly recommend that as you're listening to the Philadelphia City Council broadcast, have a pen and paper ready. Have a pen and paper ready. You know, there's a point where you have, or there's certain points during the session of the whole where you'll have City Council Clerk Michael Decker. He'll read off the numbers of, or the numbers of particular or specific bills, right? You also have that moment where City Council Majority Leader Sherelle Parker will rattle off a list of numbers, of bill numbers, at a certain point to say, you know, hey, these are the bills that that are under consideration for passage. For debate and passage today, you know, something to that effect. And so, you know, she'll rattle off a list of, she's been slowing down a little bit, so that's good, you know, just to make sure that everybody gets those bill numbers. So while that's happening, have that pen and paper ready and write those numbers down while you have on a laptop or something, while you have phila.legistar.com up, you have that search function ready, and then you can start, you know, you can, as I'm, you know, listening into it and anchoring and trying to guide and navigate you through it, you can also navigate yourself through it as well. That's a great way to kind of keep track of those bills on any given on any given broadcast of City Council Live. So phlcouncil.com. Let's open up the phone lines while we're waiting on Philadelphia City Council, by the way. Hopefully they'll be starting soon. 215-634-8065. Toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on City Council Live. 215-634-8065. Toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on City Council Live, Philadelphia City Council Live. Also go to @PHL Council on Twitter. Twitter is a great vehicle, online digital social media vehicle to use to also watch City Council or to watch what's being introduced or discussed in City Council. The social media team over there has been doing better in terms of also sharing in real time what legislation is being considered before the Philadelphia City Council and providing that information there on their real-time Twitter feed. So go to twitter.com and go to @PHL Council. I'd also recommend that so you can have that in two different tabs or two different browsers, phlcouncil.com and also twitter.com @PHL Council. Highly recommend signing up for twitter.com. Twitter is a great way. It's a great news feed site. That's why I prefer Twitter over the other social media platforms, and that's where I am primarily at Ellison Report. So @PHL Council on Twitter, if you like to kind of keep track of what they're up to, particularly on days when they meet as a session of the whole. 215-634-8065, toll free. It is 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. Also, you want to go to phila.legistar.com to, or go to the calendar, go to phlcouncil.com to also find out about upcoming meetings or upcoming Philadelphia City Council committee hearings that are also on tap. We do have a public hearing that's coming Monday, actually, at 2:30. The Joint Committees on Public Safety and Public Health will have a hearing this coming Monday at 2:30, and they're going to examine available options for protecting Philadelphia residents who are currently in the Philadelphia jail system and the Pennsylvania prison system from COVID-19. So that hearing is taking place. Folks who are incarcerated are dealing with obviously an elevated, a heightened level of risk from COVID-19, from pandemic, while being incarcerated, while being in jail and prison cells. That is something that is not discussed and talked about or reported on enough. So there will be a joint hearing between the committees, the City Council committees on public safety and also health and human services. That takes place Monday, March 15th at 2:30. Now, you can provide testimony. You can provide testimony during that committee hearing. So you should call 267-225-1668, or you can send an email to sabrina.aponte, and that's sabrina.aponte@phila.gov, and you have to do that by 3 p.m. Now it says by 3 p.m. the day before the hearing. That's a Sunday. I suspect they're meeting a business day, so I would recommend you send that email to, or you call Sabrina Aponte by 3 p.m. tomorrow. If you have some perspective to offer on this topic, you may have a loved one who is currently incarcerated in the Philadelphia jails or in the Pennsylvania prison system, and you are worried about their safety, about their health, and how protected they are from COVID-19 while they are in jail. So you might want to provide testimony before the City Council committee or these two City Council committees on next Monday at 2:30. So we do know that is coming up. So we'll keep a close eye on that. Other City Council business that's happening. I do believe there's a hearing on March the 17th, the Committee on Commerce and Economic Development in the Philadelphia City Council is also meeting Wednesday, March 17th at 10 a.m. And this is a Committee on Commerce and Economic Development hearing. They're going to be talking about a resolution authorizing City Council's Committee on Commerce and Economic Development to hold hearings regarding comprehensive qualitative and quantitative efforts to improve the ease of doing business in the city of Philadelphia. So that's another one. So if you'd like to provide testimony on that, particularly if you're a small business owner in the city of Philadelphia, 215-686-3458. If you'd like to provide testimony, you need to, by Tuesday, 3 p.m., let them know. Call 215-686-3458 or send an email to Sean McMonagle. So that's Sean, S-E-A-N .MCMONAGLE @phila.gov. Sean McMonagle, I think that's how that's pronounced. And so that hearing is taking place on the 17th. The City Council Committee on Transportation and Public Utilities, they'll be meeting March the 22nd. And this is a little bit more of an obscure topic, but they are creating an early retirement program for certain employees working in or with the Department of Commerce Aviation Division. So that's a really obscure and very technical topic, and I'm not sure there's a whole lot of interest in that. But anyway, go to phlcouncil.com and check out the calendar, see what hearings are coming up. Also, you can get the calendar for the hearings of the whole of City Council, like what we're waiting on right now. We're just waiting on them still. Hopefully they'll be here shortly. 215-634-8065. Toll free, it is 866-361-0900. In the meantime, we'll have phone lines open while we're waiting on Philadelphia. I'm just looking for that indication that they are coming up, so I don't see that yet. And they will be meeting virtually. You will be able to listen in and see how that's going. A couple of thoughts too. We've been having this week some very emotional conversations, I would say, on vaccine distribution or equitable vaccine distribution. I've gotten a bit emotional too when talking about that, because it does make you angry. It does make you angry when we look at the data, and we still have issues, whether it's in the city of Philadelphia or elsewhere. We still have these issues where this is federally mandated vaccine. It's the sole purpose of it is to inoculate the U.S. population and to get us out of pandemic. We are fast approaching, or we are about to surpass, if we keep up at this rate, we may surpass the number of deaths from the 1918 influenza pandemic. So here we are in the 21st century. We've got better technology. We've got better intelligence. I would assume we have better sense of mind, better common sense than they had back in the early 20th century. That was right after the dawn of the 20th century. And we're about to we have the ability to curtail viral outbreaks like what's happened with COVID-19, better ability and capability than we had back in 1918, or than our ancestors had back in 1918. And we're about to, we may be on the path. We may have already, because even the record keeping of COVID-19 infection rates and deaths, that's been a bit shoddy, right? So we may have already surpassed the number of people who have perished or who did perish from the 1918 influenza pandemic. So, a couple of points I want to make here before City Council starts, and we'll continue to keep these phone lines open at 215-634-8065, 866-361-0900. The first point is, in order to get out of the pandemic, we need the vast majority of the U.S. population inoculated. And the United States is still not doing well in terms of how it's managing the pandemic and infection, hospitalization, and death rates compared to other countries. So we're at the top of infection, hospitalization, and also death rates when we are compared to other countries. So that's one. Two, we have this problem of inequitable vaccine distribution. You're having situations where metropolitan areas that have huge concentrations of, for example, Black residents or cities that have a majority black population, still they are the least likely, those populations are the least likely to receive vaccine. So we've got to fix that. We have to immediately close that gap. It's not helping at all when, on one hand, right, we know and we're rightfully outraged that there's inequitable vaccine distribution. So on one hand, you know, we're calling that out, and we should, right? Especially when you have like a higher rate of whites who are getting vaccinated versus the number of black people getting vaccinated. You know, that black people are not being prioritized as this vaccine is being distributed. We should be rightfully angry, but you can't be angry about that and then at the same time you're being anti-vaccine. It's incongruent. It defies all logic. You can't do that. And honestly, that conversation, that kind of open conversation, adds to the vulnerability that it adds to the political, social, economic, and public health vulnerability that we're already dealing with. It muddles the conversation and it muddles the effort to get us equitably vaccinated. That said, we should be openly side-eyeing medical institutions. We should be openly having a conversation about, hey, you know what, City Council is starting. Let's go to that. We'll hear Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark. He's starting now.
Council is currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft's Teams to make this remote meeting possible. Instructions for how the public may view the meeting and offer public comment are included in the stated meeting notice that was published in the Daily News, Enquirer, the Legal Intelligencer prior to the meeting, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. I now note that the hour has come. The clerk will please call the roll to take attendance, and members that are in attendance will please indicate that they are present when your name is called to ensure that your image is displayed on the screen. Thank you very much. Mr. Decker, please call the roll. Okay, Mr. Decker. Mr. Decker, you can just call the roll. Call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass.
Good morning, I am present. Good morning, Mr. President and council colleagues in Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, everyone. I am present.
Councilman Dom.
Morning, Council President and colleagues, and morning, Philadelphia.
Morning.
Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the public present.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilman Green.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, members of council. Good morning to the city of brotherly love and in Women's History Month, sisterly effectiveness.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues, and good morning, Philadelphia. I am present.
Good morning.
Councilman Heenan.
Good morning, Council President, and good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman Johnson.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. I'm calling for justice for all of our youth who have lost their lives to senseless gun violence.
Morning.
Councilman Jones.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Philadelphia.
Good morning.
Councilman O.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Councilman O'Neill.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Councilwoman Parker.
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, colleagues in Philadelphia. And Mr. President, having some technical difficulties. I can't turn on my screen or else I'll lose my sound. So I'm going to keep the sound on. Thank you all.
We need your sound, Councilwoman. Good morning.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, colleagues. I think today is the day with bad internet connection for us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Councilwoman.
Councilman Squilla.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Present.
Good morning, Councilman.
Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning to the listening public.
Good morning, Councilman.
Council President Clark.
Good morning to all. We have established a quorum, so we're now going to come to order. To give our invocation this morning, the chair will recognize Archbishop Mary Floyd Palmer of Heavenly Hall Church. She is here today as a guest of Councilwoman Gauthier. I would ask all members and guests to please bow your heads for the invocation.
Good morning, President Clark, Majority Leader Parker, Minority Leader O'Neill, fellow council members, and in particular, Councilwoman Gauthier for this invitation. Let us pray. Oh God, our help in ages past, our hope for years to come, our shelter from the stormy blast, and our eternal home. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful that your finger of love touched us this morning to awake us and get the activity of not just our spirits, but our minds, our hearts, and our bodies. There are many concerns that are before us: COVID-19, violence of gun and others, hunger, unemployment, sickness, despair, loss of hope, lack of care, concern, compassion, and yes, Lord, even death. So with all of these things in mind, we ask that you will touch each council member. You will strengthen their bodies, that they will be able to make sound decisions, that you will strengthen their minds, that they will have clarity of thought and speech, that you will strengthen their spirits, that they will be able in their decisions to promote healing and wholeness. Holy Spirit, be our invited guests in all that we discuss today in conducting the business of these thy people in the city that we love so much, so that, Lord, trust will never be abused, integrity will never be compromised, and the wisdom that only comes from you will forever be endowed to these, our servants, your servants, in their continued care for all people in this city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. This is my humble prayer. Your servant, we ask in the name that is above every name, Jesus the Christ, we do pray. Amen, amen, and amen. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here today. Give those inspiring words. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 4th, 2021. And the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 4th, 2021 be approved.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, March 4th, 2021 stand approved. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. The ayes have it, and that journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence today.
Chair thanks the Councilwoman. And our next order of business is communications. And I'm going to ask Mr. Decker to please read the messages from the mayor and any other communications that he may have in his possession.
From the mayor to the president and members of the council of the city of Philadelphia, pursuant to sections 4604 and 2307 of the onWURD Charter, I am today transmitting to the council the recommendation of the City Planning Commission on the following bills. Bill numbers 210002, 210075, 210076, 210078, and 210081. And I am pleased to advise you that on March 10, 2021, I signed the following bill, which was passed by council at a session on February 25, 2021, bill number 200617. And that on March 10, 2021, I signed the following bills, which were passed by council at its session on March 4, 2021. Bill numbers 210073, 210077, 210080, 210120, and 210121. And I am transmitting for the consideration of your honorable body. A resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1331 North 8th Street, located in the 5th Councilmanic District, in accordance with terms of Chapter 16700 of the Philadelphia Code, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Thank you. And our next order of business is introduction of bills and resolutions. And just by way of a reminder, we are asking that all resolutions, including privileged resolutions, be placed on the final passage calendar for our next session of council, unless they are being referred to committee. In our current remote environment, this procedure will provide an appropriate opportunity for public comment. I want to thank you very much in advance for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, would you please read the titles of the legislation that is being offered today by the members?
Councilwoman Parker offers one bill and one resolution. On behalf of Council President Clark, Councilwoman Parker offers an ordinance authorizing and approving the execution and delivery of one or more service agreements between the City of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority, and/or one or more other city-related authorities related to the financing of a neighborhood preservation initiative, which includes housing, commercial corridors, and neighborhood infrastructure programs.
Thank you. That will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And on her own behalf, Councilwoman Parker offers a resolution.
Mr. Decker, hold on one second. Before we move on to the next resolution, let me recognize Councilwoman Gill.
Yes, thank you so much, Council President. I have to leave this meeting for official council business and would like to request a leave for the rest of the meeting, but would like to be recorded as voting aye on all bills and resolutions.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Leave shall be granted. You shall be recorded as voting aye on all bills and resolutions. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Decker. Please continue.
On her own behalf, Councilwoman Parker offers a resolution authorizing the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless to hold hearings examining the race gap in home appraisals and its impact on home ownership and wealth accumulation in Philadelphia.
This week's calendar.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers 4 resolutions. On behalf of Council President Clark, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1331 North 8th Street, located in the 5th Councilmanic District.
Next week's calendar.
And on her own behalf, Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson offers a resolution supporting a City of Philadelphia Lights Out campaign and recognizing and honoring the Bird Safe Philly Coalition, the Building Industry Association of Philadelphia, and the Building Owners and Managers Association Philadelphia in their collaborative effort to protect the migratory bird population.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution urging U.S. Senators Casey and Toomey and the U.S. Senate to pass House Resolution 1, Senate Resolution 1 for the People Act.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing and supporting working women and mothers impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic in honor of Women's History Month and calling for a robust federal response to our nation's first She Session.
Next week's calendar.
Council President?
Yes. Councilwoman
Yes.
Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear for the record that the Bird Safe resolution was co-introduced by my colleague, Councilmember Kenyatta Johnson, and the For the People resolution was co-introduced by my colleague, Councilmember Maria Quinones Sanchez. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. The record shall reflect that. Mr. Decker.
Councilman Heenan offers one bill entitled an ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cotman Avenue, Milner Street, Princeton Avenue, and the Delaware River.
Heard the committee.
Councilman Jones offers one bill entitled an ordinance amending Chapter 9 of Subcode PM, the Philadelphia Property Maintenance Code of Title 4 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Additional Special Requirements, to establish a program in which the city may perform certain urgent repairs and bill the property owner.
Heard the committee.
Councilman Johnson offers 2 resolutions. Entitled a resolution honoring Amanda Gorman, the first National Youth Poet Laureate, for becoming the youngest poet to ever speak at a U.S. presidential inauguration.
Councilman Johnson, you wanted to speak before the reading on the next resolution?
Yes, sir. Well, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the purpose of this resolution, just honoring the great work of this young lady, Amanda Gorman, who was the first national poet laureate, but also the youngest inaugural poet who spoke at our President Biden's inauguration with her poem, "The Hill We Climb," calling on for unity and healing in the United States. Most recently, she was racially profiled in a building in which she lived by a security guard. And so, this resolution is really sending good vibes of encouragement, support, and empowerment. She talked about how one day she was an icon, but another day being racially profiled. And that's what we deal with every day here in America, particularly as Black people, regardless of our status and or position. And so this resolution is an honor in supporting her great efforts and encourage this young lady to keep on keeping on doing this Women's History Month. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. That will be on next week's calendar.
Councilman Johnson offers a resolution honoring the life and legacy of Philadelphia's own Smokin' Joe Frazier on the 50th anniversary of his heavyweight championship win over Muhammad Ali in the fight of the century.
Councilman, did you want to be recognized before this also?
Absolutely, Council President. We know he hails from North Philadelphia, the 5th Councilmanic District. But when we talk about the boxing culture here in the city of Philadelphia, I take a nod to my colleague, Councilman Curtis Jones, who's always on the front line promoting boxing tournaments and encouraging young people to put down the guns and pick up the gloves. And we think about the rich boxing culture and the history that we have here in the city of Philadelphia. All this weekend, we have had an opportunity to celebrate, which we all know as the fight of the century. Philadelphia has a shining king of boxing, which is our former heavyweight champion, Smokin' Joe Frazier, who put Muhammad Ali down in the 15th round with a mighty left hook, also giving him his first defeat. And so it is a great pleasure and honor that I introduce this resolution because as Philadelphians, that was a particular moment in the history that I look back on that I'm proud of, that put our city on the map. We should always continue to celebrate those who are representing the city of Philadelphia in the best and brightest way. And so I enthusiastically introduced this resolution in honoring the life and legacy of Philadelphia great heavyweight champion, Smokin' Joe Frazier, honoring his victory over Muhammad Ali during the fight of the century. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. And if anyone is passing 13th and Allegheny, you can see an awesome mural that was just unveiled yesterday by local artists, and it is really, really, really special. Thank you, Councilman. That will be on next week's calendar.
You're welcome.
Councilman Green offers one bill and one resolution entitled "An Ordinance Providing for the Submission of the Qualified Electors of the City of Philadelphia of an Amendment to Article 8, Chapter 5 of the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter entitled Referenda Approved by Voters," by adding a new section providing that the citizens of Philadelphia call upon the Pennsylvania General Assembly and the governor to pass legislation that will decriminalize, regulate, and tax the use and sale to adults aged 21 years or older of cannabis for non-medical purposes.
Okay. That will be referred to committee.
And a resolution submitting to the electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to Article 8, Chapter 5 of the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter entitled Referenda Approved by the Voters, by adding a new section providing that the citizens of Philadelphia call upon the Pennsylvania General Assembly and the governor to pass legislation that will decriminalize, regulate, and tax the use and sale to adults aged 21 years or older of cannabis for non-medical purposes.
Thank you. Also referred to committee. Hold on a second, Mr. Decker. Councilman Heenan, did you want to be recognized now?
Thank you, Council President. It was on the previous introduction of the
that Councilman Johnson had introduced a resolution recognizing the legacy of our rich boxing history with Joe Frazier and the Frazier family. I just wanted to, point of personal privilege that, a lot of people, I mean, look at 50 years ago and we're still talking about, how proud we are of the city of First and proud of our family and our roots and our ability to really gather around each other for public safety, education, and having these stars and starlight power given back to the community, to the whole entire, Fraser family. But they also brought people up with them. All right. They also brought people up in the neighborhoods. They educated them. They connected them to job. They did job trainings. They, we're helping with our public safety, trying to, make sure that people who, fell on hard times be shown the right path. They also had, good supplier network and folks in promotion. I know Johan Jr. or Johan Promotions, it was Cloverly then at the time was the promoter. They're also celebrating 50 years. So I want to congratulate them in their tenure and looking after Philadelphians in many, many ways that still continue today, with their legacy. So it's more than a fight. It's more than a family. All right. It's all of the city together, rallying around one of its own, as we do. All right. We take care of each other. We don't let anybody pick on us. All right. We're very protective of each other and what we do. So I just want to, thank Councilman Johnson for recognizing the 50-year anniversary. But it's much deeper than that. And, I'm proud to be a part of it, just like everybody has been for the last 50 years.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Decker, please continue.
Councilwoman Brooks offers one resolution entitled a resolution commemorating the life and legacy of community activist Sean W. Wilson, whose tireless advocacy against gun violence and racial injustice advanced community safety and expanded a powerful model of neighborhood engagement for former first responders and veterans in the city of Philadelphia.
That will be on next week's calendar.
Excuse me, Council President.
Chair recognizes Councilman Jones. I'm sorry, Johnson.
Yeah, can I have a small point of privilege just acknowledging my colleague Kendra Brooks as she introduced a resolution honoring a young man named Sean Wilson who had an organization called Vets in the Hood. And he'd been down in City Council on several different occasions advocating and fighting for resources for our most prized individuals who have served our country, which are our veterans. And so I just want to commend her and also Councilman Kathleen Gilmore Richardson, just making sure that we acknowledge individuals who are really on the ground doing the work. And Council President, we know as the leader of this body, it was your hard work and your efforts to create the Office of Veterans Affairs and also the Veterans Parade and also the Veterans Ceremony where we award them every year. And so in that spirit, I just wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge his life and his legacy. And he had a word that said, love on purpose, particularly around this issue of gun violence that we're seeing here in the city of Philadelphia. And he had a spirit of just reaching out to young people and helping them change their lives and really talking about really what it is to love on purpose. And so I just want to acknowledge that for the record, and my heart and prayers goes out to his family and also the Nicetown community as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Decker, please proceed.
Councilman Thomas offers two resolutions entitled a resolution honoring and congratulating the Father Judge High School wrestling team for their second consecutive win of the Philadelphia Catholic League Wrestling Championship in their 2019 to 2020 season.
That will be on next week's calendar.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Education to hold hearings to identify and examine potential systemic biases in oversight that create inequalities between Black and white-led schools, resulting in fewer resources or support for Black-founded and led institutions.
Dave's calendar.
Council President, can I be recognized on?
Yes, certainly. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate it. I just want to take a moment to, first of all, thank my colleague, Councilmember Bobby Heenan, for co-introducing the legislation with me as far as recognizing Judge as the Champion of the Week. And I also want to take a moment to thank all of my colleagues who co-sponsored my resolution around looking at Black institutions, Black-led institutions. Specifically, give a shout out to my colleague, Councilmember Jones, who had 6 Black-led institutions in his district alone. And he is one of the co-sponsors of this legislation. I've been in some interesting meetings as a member of the Education Committee, and I've been part of a lot of dialogue as it relates to how Black institutions specifically are treated. And what I don't want to happen is for this conversation to be hijacked and it turn into a conversation around charter schools. This is not about charter schools at all. This is about Black-led institutions and how Black institutions are treated significantly different than their white counterparts. For me personally, again, I've been a part of some dialogues and I've heard some things that I feel like are really troubling. And I think that our best steps moving forward, because I think that there's some perception issues around Black institutions, Black educators, Black children, and Black families. I think that the most important thing for us moving forward is to move this conversation to a public forum so we can ensure that the dialogue is one that's transparent, it's informative, it's factual, and it's one that's looked at through a lens of equity as well as justice. I believe in African-centered education. I come from a space of African-centered pedagogy. I'm very familiar with a lot of different initiatives that take place when you're dealing with African-centered pedagogy. Sometimes we start our day with Harambe, which is a Kiswahili term that means let's pull together. Young people, they even count using different languages and terms. I listen to my son in Harambe, and when they're ready to start, they don't say 1, 2, 3. They say Moja, Mbili, Tattoo. And that's teaching the young people numbers in a totally different language. I asked my son this morning, son, what is your principle of the month? And he has a different principle of the month that's based on the principles of Kwanzaa. And so when you're talking about Ujima and Ujima and all the other principles, my son is learning those things at an early stage. When I get the opportunity to ask him about historical illusions, his perception of great Black folks is not just limited to Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, and he's in 3rd grade. I had an opportunity to listen to him recite a speech by Langston Hughes that he actually memorized. And in the speech, right, my 3rd grade 8-year-old son was able to articulate in his speech the difference between when you are a person of color and when you are a person of color being forced to go in the kitchen and eat when there's company. So in the spirit of Langston Hughes and in the spirit of my son, I do not want our Black institutions to have to go in the kitchen anymore. I want them to be able to have the same access to resources, the same treatment, and the same privileges as their white counterparts. And so in the spirit of Black equity, right, and only in the spirit of Black equity, I emphatically introduced this resolution today. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilman. That will be on today's calendar.
Councilman O'Neill offers one bill entitled An Ordinance to Amend the Philadelphia Zoning Maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Cottman Avenue, the Montgomery County line, the Bucks County line, Interstate 95, Grant Avenue, and Roosevelt Boulevard.
For the committee.
Councilwoman Bass offers 2 resolutions entitled a resolution recognizing March 2021 as Brain Injury Awareness Month to increase understanding of chronic brain injury, reduce stigma, showcase the diversity of injury across demographics, and improve care and support.
Next week's calendar.
And a resolution recognizing March 2021 as National Nutrition Month to educate Philadelphians on how to make informed food choices and develop healthy eating and physical activity habits while raising awareness of the need for accessible, nutritious food.
Next week's calendar.
There are no other bills or resolutions being offered by the members, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions for the day. And our next order of business is reports from committees. And the chair recognizes Councilman Johnson. for a report from the Committee on Rules.
Thank you, Council President. The Committee on Rules reports out 3 bills with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, will you please read that report?
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Rules, to which is referred Bill Number 200628, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by revising and clarifying certain provisions and making technical changes. And Bill Number 210075, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by revising and clarifying certain provisions and making technical changes. And Bill Number 210078, entitled an ordinance amending Title 14 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Zoning and Planning, by revising and clarifying certain provisions and making technical changes. Respectfully reports it has considered and amended the same and returns the offense bills to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I move that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading of this day of bills number 200628, 210075, and 210078.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 200628, 210075, and 210078. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. These bills will be placed on our first reading calendar today. Chair now recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez for a report from the Committee on Appropriations.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Appropriations reports out 1 bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
The Committee on Appropriations, to which is referred Bill Number 210160, entitled an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2021 from the General Fund, the Council, to the General Fund, the Managing Director. Respectfully reports it has considered the same and returns the attached bill to council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit first reading this day of bill number 210160.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 210160. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. And the bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our report on committee, and our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that those bills just reported from committee with suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had a first reading, and these bills will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. As there are no additional bills on the first reading calendar, the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker. The purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the second reading and final passage calendar today.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 210183, 210184, 210185, 210186, 210187, 210188, 210189, 210190, 210192, 210194, 210196, 210200, 200618, and 210122. All other bills and resolutions are being held, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. Before we proceed with our calendar, we'll have our public comment session. So we're going to take a few minutes, 5 to 10 minutes recess to give our technology professionals some time to connect with the speakers for today. So we'll take a brief recess.
back to Reality Check. We are here on 96.1 FM 900 AM, WURDradio.com, WURD TV, WURD app as well. Joining me now is the Georgia State Director for All Voting is Local, Aklima Kondoker. She is there in Georgia, in fact, watching the steady introduction and a potential passage of a number of voter suppression, voter destruction bills in the Georgia State Legislature. Georgia State Legislature also among 44 states where 253 different types of voter destruction bills are being introduced right now. We've been talking about that quite a bit on Reality Check. Aklima is here with us today. Aklima, thanks so much. So talk about how many bills right now are there in the Georgia State Legislature right now between the Georgia House and the Georgia Senate that are pushing for more restrictive or more restrictions on voting rights?
So thank you so much for having me. And right now, our latest count is over 50. I think about 53 right now challenge voters' accessibility to the ballot.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so it sounds like that's 53. It's already 253 that last count, at least according to the Brennan Center, their state voting rights or state voting laws roundup. So that's a pretty big chunk of the amount of voter suppression, voter destruction bills nationwide. What are some of these bills, these voter restriction, voter destruction bills focused on? What are some of the creative ways that these are Republicans in the state legislature that they've come up with in wake of the 2020 election to make it much more harder to access the ballot box?
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is targeted and concerted efforts to really roll back a lot of the gains that we saw our voters enjoy in accessibility last year. So we're seeing restrictions and in some cases all-out prohibitions against absentee voting, the use of drop boxes, automatic voter registration, all of these tools that voters used and really relied on over the 2020 and runoff election in 2021 to make it possible for people to access the ballot. So they're really attacking these fundamental and critical mechanisms that voters were able to use to cast their ballots. They want to, for example, take drop boxes, these boxes that look a lot like mailboxes that are often bolted to the ground under constant video surveillance. They want to move them inside so that way people can only access them during a limited amount of hours. Whereas before in 2020, we saw them available for safe and effective ballot delivery throughout our election. Now they want to bring them inside. They also want to limit our early voting time. So where before we had early voting that could happen between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. with specific provisions given to counties where they could extend their hours if they need to, they now want early voting to only be between the hours of 9 to 5. And we all know that 9 to 5, those are critical working hours. This is when people are typically working a job. And without having that critical time before work and after work, or even giving counties the power to extend their hours so that if someone is in line by 7 a.m., but their county doesn't open up to allow for voting until later on in the day, they're able to still extend that time so that way people have enough time to cast their ballots. Well, they're looking to take that away as well. So what we are seeing right now are concerted and targeted efforts to make it more difficult for people to request their absentee ballot. We're now seeing provision in Senate Bill 241 to require excuses, where Georgia's been a no excuse absentee voting state since 2005. All of a sudden, they want to push excuses that people have to come up with in order to just request their ballot. And now to send it back, they want to require not only an oath that people sign and attest that everything is correct, but also a witness requirement, which is something entirely new that Georgians have never had to do. So these are particularly abhorrent and are alarming because so many of us are now physically distanced, working from home, and are trying to take cautionary measures against COVID-19. And now they are forcing people to find a way to interact with others to just request an absentee ballot. Never mind making it more difficult to send it back because now you don't have open access to that drop box that you did over 2020 and in the January runoff. So we're seeing a lot of limits to a lot of the open access that voters were able to enjoy over the last two elections.
Aklima is joining us for our voting rights threat assessment, which we have here now weekly on Reality Check, doing this in conjunction with All Voting is Local. More information on the work they're doing, on the work individuals like Aklima is doing in Georgia at allvotingislocal.org, allvotingislocal.org, or at votingislocal on social media, hashtag voting rights threat report. So we're just trying to create as much awareness, spark as much awareness around these types of very sinister bills. There's just no other way to describe them. Sinister, nefarious bills that are being introduced in the majority of state capitals throughout the country, and quite a few of them, 53 of them last count, according to this conversation, in Georgia. So I guess we're just bracing, Aklima, correct? Are you in Georgia bracing for the passage of these bills because you have a Republican trifecta in the state government there, the House, the Senate, and then the governorship, all run by Republicans. So embracing, one, are you braced for passage of these? And then two, if they are passed, what's the counter? And how do you prepare Georgia populations, particularly those voters that are going to be most likely disenfranchised by this or most likely targeted by this kind of voter suppression? How do you prepare residents in Georgia? How do you prepare those disproportionately impacted populations?
So number one, thank you for raising that point. The fact that these bills will have a disproportionate impact on voters of color, people who are rural voters, who are poorer voters, people with disabilities, those people who really need to have expanded access to the ballot. Now, expanded access to the ballot is good for everyone. So this is why it's so very alarming that we're seeing these bills. But preparation is very important. What was necessary over 2020 and in the January runoff, which we were able to do, is provide necessary information, truthful information about our elections for our voters to access. It's unfortunate that over 2020, we did not have robust communications between the Secretary of State's office and to voters so that they could understand what their voting rights are, or even where to vote, or even how to vote. A lot of that information was difficult for people to ascertain. So one of the things that we are definitely going to make sure to work on is to make sure that people have access to that clear information about how their voting rights, how their voting accessibility will change should any of these bills actually pass. And if they do pass, we expect that it's going to be immediate. And, you know, it's not a presidential year. However, elections are still happening. Local elections are happening. And these elections are so important because these elections determine most directly what will happen in a person's community and what control they have over who represents them within their community. We have our mayoral election that's happening for the city of Atlanta in December. And so it's critical for voters to understand what their rights are and how to access their ballots. What we saw over 2020 is we had this brand new provision of drop boxes, which Georgia hadn't had prior to the pandemic, where voters now have this free option for safe and effective ballot delivery whenever they wanted to provide their absentee ballot. This was critical because so many polling sites have been closed across the state in the wake of Shelby v. Holder. Now that there is no pre-clearance requirement for counties or municipalities to present to the Department of Justice.
They can basically make whatever changes they want to make without the federal government giving them any guidance or direction or penalizing them for making changes that disenfranchise people. That's what you mean by pre-clearance.
Exactly. That is what I mean by pre-clearance. So without that pre-clearance requirement, that means that a county or municipality may at will just decide to close a location down for whatever their reasons are. And most of the closures that we had seen were in, in communities of color, in places where people do not have clear and accessible ballot access. So one thing that drop boxes did was made it easier for people to go ahead and deliver their absentee ballot where they may not have clear access to a polling site. And because the Secretary of State did not make those sites available, there was no place for a person to actually view where their drop box location was. That was something that All Voting is Local was able to provide. We provided a drop box locator tool for people to actually find that drop box. So in thinking about how to fight against these bills should they become law, one of the number one things that we are considering and that we're going to make sure that we do is to make sure that voters have access to accurate information about how to access the ballot. Because more than anything, beyond what they try to do in the legislature, we are still going to show up to vote. And not only that, we are still going to show up to beat back these provisions that seek to restrict or prohibit our access, because the right to vote is fundamental to all Americans. And what these bills do is really hurt the fabric of American democracy. It really harkens back to the darkest days of our democracies, those Jim Crow laws. We've seen a lot about that. We've seen a lot of comparison between the darkest days of Jim Crow and this new Jim Crow era that's quickly emerging.
Session to sign up for public comment. When you call, we will take your name, phone number, the number of the legislative item you are commenting on, and whether you are in support of or against the legislation, and add you to the list. We will telephone each person on the list during a council session and invite them to our remote meeting. Now, under ideal circumstances, they will each have 3 minutes, but today, given the volume, we're going to ask you to limit your testimony to 2 minutes. Thank you. In order to be fair to all those wishing to speak, I intend to hold faithfully to the established time limit. So once invited to and asked to begin your testimony, a timer will be started, and we will monitor your remaining time throughout your testimony. When there are 30
All right. So,
public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. And by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. We're now going to get started, and I would ask the chief clerk to please read the name of our first speaker on the list.
Laura Arblaster, commenting on 210187.
Thank you so much, City Council. It truly means so much to not only me, but our entire team and our families to be recognized in Resolution 210187. We began the work in 2016 because we saw a wrong, or rather an injustice, and to the best of our abilities tried to right it. I can only speak for myself, but perhaps the ladies on my team feel the same. We thought we would gather people together to lift their spirits, to say we see you and we hear you. That said, I did not dream we would be leaders of a movement that has helped change the trajectory of our country. By showing my support of Resolution 210187, I'm showing my daughter and the next generation of women that their voice matters and that they matter. Thank you so much for your time.
Just for the record again, say your name briefly. Just for the record.
Laura Arblaster.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Beth Finn, commenting on 210187.
Did you say Beth Finn?
Yeah, Beth Finn.
WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD
Yes.
Philadelphia.
My name is Beth Finn. Resolution sponsor, Councilmember Catherine Gilmore Richardson, members of Philadelphia City Council. Thank you for considering this important resolution about the Women's March on Philadelphia during Women's History Month. My name is Beth Finn, and I am one of the co-founders of the Women's March on Philadelphia and the president of the Pennsylvania chapter of the National Organization for Women. I live in the Society Hill section of Philadelphia. When we started planning the first Women's March on Philadelphia in late 2016, we did not have any idea what the event would become here at home, around the country, and around the world. We would have considered the event a success if a few hundred people had shown up on the Ben Franklin Parkway to march in solidarity with us and our allies in Washington, D.C. We were truly fortunate that our partners in the city's Department of Parks and Rec and Office of Special Events knew better what to expect. Bob Allen, Doug Robinson, Giselle Jones, and all of their colleagues across countless departments were instrumental in making sure that each of the 4 women's marches on Philadelphia were peaceful, safe, and successful. Without their expertise, the 60,000 marchers would not have been able to gather, exercise their First Amendment right of peaceful protest, and strengthen each other for the hard work we knew was ahead of us following the 2016 presidential election. Though the challenges facing women did not start with that election, and they haven't been magically solved by our most current president, the 2016 election served as a catalyst for many Americans to start to claim their voices as citizens. This is the most powerful promise of our democracy. The first Women's March was an opportunity for ordinary people to jumpstart their activism. It led to people demanding their rights guaranteed in our Constitution, to constituents expecting more from their elected officials, and to record numbers of women, people of color, LGBTQ people, and underrepresented groups running for office. I am so proud of the work my Resistor sisters and I have done to organize these 4 years of women marches. I am proud of the platform we were able to create to amplify these voices, and I am proud of the incredible work that tens of thousands of people took on to make our city, our country, and our world a better place. There is still so much more work to do to guarantee that women are paid equitably for the work that we do, that women have autonomy over our own health and bodies, that the burden of maintaining a household and caring for our children doesn't fall solely on our shoulders, that violence against women, especially domestic violence, is taken as seriously as other kinds of violence, and that women are represented equally in all places where decisions are being made. The passage of this resolution by this council shows the commitment of the City of Philadelphia to these ideals. Thank you for your support and for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Nikki Bagby, commenting on 210187.
Hello,
Good
can you
morning.
hear me?
Yes, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good morning. My name is Nikki Bagby.
Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm in agreement to resolution 210187, and I wanted to thank, of course, for introducing Councilwoman Richardson, along with Councilwoman Parker, Councilwoman Quinones, Sanchez, Councilwoman Gem, Councilmember Gautier, Councilwoman Brooks, Councilman Hernan, as well as Squiller, Councilman Green, Councilman Johnson, and Councilman Dom. I just wanted to thank everyone again. I add on to all the comments that both my fellow organizers, as a Black woman, one of two Black women, well, three Black women who helped to put on the march, we found that there was even a lot of opposition within our own community with being a part of this march. But I'm so glad that there was a sisterhood built out of it. I was so glad that we had a platform that we were not able to talk together in unity about all of us being a woman, but so many minority communities were also represented during this time. I am so honored that we were not only a part of this Women's March, but we were a part of a continued movement that created such an impact across the world. I want to thank everyone who participated, including our mayor and several of our councilwomen who were on the line. I want to thank all of the men who were our partnerships and friends along with this march. And I just want to thank the council for recognizing we had one of the largest consistent marches, and there were not only the 65,000 that started that day, but there were hundreds of thousands of people that came through the snow, through the rain, through the cold, just to put forth a movement that will be written into legacy for the rest of our lives. And I am so honored today that Philadelphia has not only acknowledged it, but it will also be in the records for the rest of our lives that our generations down the line can also open to read as they follow this bill. So I want to thank you again. I want to thank the members of council, and I am so blessed to witness this movement and that our movement had such impact that we saw change. Thank you again.
Thank you for your testimony.
The next speaker is Teresa White, commenting on 210200.
Good morning to the distinguished and honorable members of the City Council of Philadelphia, to Council President Clark. I would like to thank Councilwoman Bass for the opportunity to show my support for and speak on behalf of Resolution 210-200, which recognizes March 8th as International Women's Day in an event to raise awareness of the adverse oppression and the inequities that women have experienced and continue to experience globally, and to celebrate the achievements of women around the world, and to campaign for positive change. I am the Director of Education and Training and Outreach Services for WURD, Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. For the past 21 years, I have dedicated my life to educating individuals and families how to prevent harm to children, youth, the elderly, people with disabilities, and women. WURD, the Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence, formerly known as Women Organized Against Rape, was founded by women to support victims of rape and other forms of sexual violence at a time when victims of sexual violence were not treated with care, respect, or dignity, and when offenders often walked away from the harm which they inflicted upon women and children. What we now know is sexual violence is an issue as it is a societal plague and as often is used as a weapon of war. We know that sexual violence knows no gender or orientation. It doesn't care about religion, race, or socioeconomic level. WURD was the first rape crisis center in Pennsylvania. And as a result of the leadership of women in the city of Philadelphia, there are now 50 centers in Pennsylvania, one in every county, that provides treatment for victims of sexual violence and promotes prevention education. City Council support for Resolution 210-200 will be an acknowledgement of the vital work conducted by women in Philadelphia and around the world, and the importance of leadership of women. And the support for this resolution will continue to show Council support and efforts to eliminate adverse oppression and inequities faced by women both in our city and around the world. Thank you, Council, for this opportunity to address you today.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Tamara Staley, commenting on 210190. Tamara Staley.
Greetings. As President and CEO of the Philadelphia Juneteenth Family Incorporated, I want to thank you, Councilman Johnson, and your co-sponsors for supporting the National Juneteenth Day of Observance bill, and encourage all of you to send letters to our Congress representatives asking for their support. The Philadelphia Juneteenth Family was founded in 2018. Our core foundation was built on 4 pillars: spiritual, cultural, education, and political. Each of these pillars represent areas that impact African American communities. Our goal is to research, plan, and organize initiatives that will improve challenges that we face today. We are dedicated to raising cultural awareness, cross-cultural exchange, and interest in the African diaspora's agenda. We work tirelessly to help the Juneteenth become the 46th state recognized holiday, along with others across the city and state, resulting in a delegation going to Harrisburg to witness the signing by Governor Wolf. We are thankful that Mayor Kennedy has made Juneteenth holiday recognized until 2023 by executive order. I leave you with this. A lot more work needs to be done, so join the family. Thank you for the opportunity to address Council, and I hope we can continue counting on you all's support as we move forward. Thank you.
Ms. Staley, just state your name for the record, please.
Tamara Staley.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Kofi Asante, commenting on 210190.
Good morning.
Good morning.
State your name for the record. Please introduce this morning. Thank you.
Kofi Asante. I want to thank Councilman Johnson and City Council President and City Council for the opportunity to speak this morning. I wanted to say thank you specifically to Councilman Johnson for his courage and his moving the resolution forward to shine light on Juneteenth. Our community needs heroes that they can touch. And Johnson responded to the urgency from our city council, from our Juneteenth president, Tamara Staley, when she called him out of urgency because Juneteenth was not on the calendar for the city. And he leaped into action like a superhero, like a hero we could touch. And he contacted his constituencies and other city council people, and lo and behold, the Juneteenth was back on the calendar, and we thank him for that. We thank him for his courage to be able to put the resolution to move forward our struggle as it relates to Juneteenth. and also to be able to join us in our movement in order to make Juneteenth a celebration in every household, that it becomes a stable name. When our community say Juneteenth, they understand the struggles and the sacrifices of those who came before us. And as we move forward even into this year with the pandemic, all the things that are happening to us in the city, it's joyful to be able to know that Juneteenth is thriving, and the programs and process that we are going to do as a Juneteenth family. So all of you heroes and sheroes that are on City Council, please continue to join us and support the Philadelphia Juneteenth family and the movement of the holiday Juneteenth on June the 19th, even in 2021. God bless and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for your testimony. The next speaker is Mark Harrell, commenting on 210190.
Good morning. Good morning, Council President Clark and members of City Council. My name is Mark Harrell. On behalf of the board of the Philadelphia Juneteenth family, I want to thank Councilman Kenyatta Johnson as well and his colleagues on City Council for introducing a resolution on Thursday, March 4th, urging the U.S. Congress to designate Juneteenth a national holiday. The Philadelphia Juneteenth family is supporting our national mother of Juneteenth, Ms. Opal Lee from Fort Worth, Texas, currently 94 years old, who started a walking campaign to Washington, D.C. in 2016 and has continued to bring awareness to the fact that there is support for it all across the nation. There is currently legislation in the U.S. Senate Bill 4019, and in the House Resolution 7232, the Juneteenth National Independence Day Act, that just needs to be passed into law. We want Juneteenth to be recognized as a national holiday. Yes, Juneteenth originated in Texas, but 47 states now has it as a day of observance to commemorate the ending of slavery, and more are making it a paid day off, including states like Virginia, New York, and Texas. We believe Juneteenth can be a unifier because it recognizes that slaves didn't free themselves and that they had help, from Quakers along the Underground Railroad, abolitionists, both black and white, like Frederick Douglass and William Lloyd Garrison, soldiers, and many others who gave their lives for the freedom of the enslaved. It's not lost on us that the summer of 2020 saw the largest support of Juneteenth to be a national holiday because of the death of George Floyd, highlighted the systemic racism that still exists because of the residual effects of slavery. We can't let the swell of support just simply disappear until the summer rolls around again. We have to make sure that Congress follows through with their commitment to honor the lives of those who came before us. Our goal with her petition, which currently has over 1.5 million signatures, and we're aiming for 3 million, and her walk, is to show Congress and the President that she is not alone in her and the Philadelphia Juneteenth family's desire to see national recognition of a day to celebrate freedom for all. Will you sign and support this petition to let them know as well? I want to thank you for your consideration and this opportunity to address you today. Victory 400. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Albert Dandridge, commenting on 210183.
Good morning. My name is Albert S. Dandridge III, and I'm here to comment on Resolution 210083 on Bernard W. Smalley Sr. Bernie Smalley and I grew up in West Philly, directly across the alleyway from each other. His bedroom window faced my bedroom window. We would yell at each other through the windows. We would meet at the back fence, at the corner store, at the G-bus across the street, bus stop across the street from his house, at the 15 trolley stop down the street from his house. We had each other's backs on the streets. He was a better talker. I was a better fighter. After years of sharing each other's joys and sorrows, the roles became interchangeable. Last fall, we lost our board of city trust president, friend, and my former law partner, Ronnie Donatucci. I remember at Ronnie's funeral, the priest giving the eulogy said that if Ronnie was not in heaven, there is no heaven. With due respect and with the same assurance as the priest, I do not believe that God would have taken Ronnie away from us at the board without a plan. The plan is Bernie Smalley. I do not believe that there is anyone living who cares more about the children, the administrators, the teachers, and the staff at Girard College than Bernie Smalley. I do not believe there is anyone living who cares more about the miracles that take place and the doctors, nurses, administrators, and staff at Wills Eye Hospital than Bernie. I do not believe that there's anyone living who cares more about the charitable entities that help the citizens of Philadelphia than Bernie Smalley. I believe that God has a plan for my friend of more than 65 years and the new president. Thanks be to God.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Yasmin Abbott, commenting on Councilman Thomas's resolution on Black-owned and led schools.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you, Councilman Thomas and Cox. My name is Yasmin Abbott, and it was imperative to send my children to a Black-owned and operated school to receive their education. It wasn't a question. Black schools matter, and attending Universal Institute Charter School from 2011 to 2020 provided a strong academic rigor while having constant Black empowerment daily. Raising Black girls is already challenging in America. Having them receive education where academic excellence is exemplified was also imperative. Having them see educated Black representations of themselves daily helped shape their confidence in who they are for 9 years of their lives, going to school from kindergarten to 8th grade. It also helped increase their social and emotional wellness, having a safe place to be educated while Black unapologetically. They strive for a higher education, attending HBCUs, and the importance of being strong, productive Black citizens in society, making a difference every day. Having the choice to choose that for educational platform for my Black girls helped me raise them without stress, worry, and fears that I already face as a Black mother in America. Thank you all again for this opportunity, and a huge thank you to Universal Institute Charter School staff and school leaders. Their dedication to their students and their scholars is absolutely unmatched.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Appreciate it.
The next speaker is Daniel Weidman.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Wyman, a proud parent of a West Oak Lane charter school, Black-owned and Black-led and Black-ran. Thank you, Councilman Thomas and his colleagues for the support and leadership of calling for this critical, important hearing. I chose to send my child to a Black-founded, Black-led charter school because they put the kids first. They don't look at what the neighborhood is or where they come from. They don't look at how much money we make. They show kids the love and support no matter where they come from. Every day, they put the kids first. For the last 3 years, I have been a proud parent of West Oak Lane Charter School. The reason why? Because my kid comes first in every decision I make. From the hurt, the pain, and suffering that our kids go through on a daily basis, it is great to know that we have charter schools like West Oak Lane in the community that is willing to take forth and give the love and care to our kids. I chose this school. If that choice is taken from me, it's not only going to hurt me, my child, but the neighborhood as well. Please, council, take forth the effort that Councilman Thomas has put forth in front of you to support the Black charter schools in the community. Black schools matter, our kids matter, their lives matter to us. Please, I ask that today that you believe in our kids the same way we do. They are doing a great job at the Black-led, Black-ran charter schools. Please do not let that voice get taken away from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Diane Clayton.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Diane Clayton, and I am speaking on behalf of the African American Charter School Coalition. I am also a grandparent of a scholar at the Global Leadership Academy, which is a Black-founded and led public charter school located in West and Southwest Philadelphia. I am here today to thank Councilman Isaiah Thomas and his colleagues who co-sponsored his resolution for their bold leadership in calling for a public hearing to examine the racial bias and discrimination that exist within the school district of Philadelphia's process of oversight, evaluation, and expansion opportunities for Black-founded and led public charter schools. In addition to being a strong academic school, Global Leadership Academy celebrates my child's heritage, educates scholars about Black history, and gives scholars the opportunity to visit the historic places that served as safe havens for our ancestors to find their way to freedom. Here we are in 2021, still fighting for our freedom and fighting for equity when it comes to public education. West and Southwest Philadelphia have very limited options when it comes to high-quality public schools. Not every neighborhood in our city has a Central, a Masterman, or a Girls High. Not to mention, these are special admission schools that require certain criteria to be admitted. We look forward to the opportunity to share our stories and challenges when it comes to maintaining our right as parents and guardians to attend a school of our choice and exposing the double standards and inequitable process the district has implemented when it comes to evaluation of Black-founded and led schools. Our children are public school students, and the Black schools matter and must be evaluated by a fair and equitable process. Doing anything less is not only discriminatory, but it also further hurts children and families like mine. We know doing what is right doesn't always mean that it is popular, but to remain silent on this very critical issue is to be complicit while our civil rights are being violated, and that is not okay. Thank you again for your leadership, Councilman Thomas, and your willingness to address this very critical issue.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
The next speaker is Letitia Swans.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello. I am calling the representation of West Philadelphia Achievement Charter School. For the past 10 years, 3 of my sons, Benny, Nigel, and Dylan Swans, have all attended the school. The school has been magnificent for them. It has helped my children go into college. One of my sons is now attending college. One of my sons is now going over to William Penn Charter School. He's just been accepted with almost a full scholarship. This school has meant a lot to me as a mother of 4 boys. It has really increased the culture of the community of Black Lives Matter movement. It has really showed my boys what it is to be a man and to have male mentors, Black men, lead my children, give my children direct assistance, give my children direct leadership, open door policies. The kids, the school, the teachers know my children directly. They know them individually. They have cared for my children throughout their educational experiences here. It has been the best thing I've ever did for my children, putting them in the school. It has also helped continue the legacy of their grandfather, Benny Jules Swans Jr., who's a Philadelphia legend, gang war hero. One of the things I want to kind of lead with before I leave this phone conversation and representation of how great the school has been for my children and my family is that every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and assists that they become the best that they can be. And this school has been that and more. Thank you very much for having the school in the West Philadelphia community for all Black lives in the whole entire environment that the school has touched, and the children and the people and the faces of the Black community and the children. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, Ms. Swan. Just say your name for the record. Just state your name.
Letitia Brown Swan.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
The next speaker is Nicole Brown.
Hello?
Yes, just state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony, please.
Good morning. My name is Nicole Brown, and thank you all for having me. I want to thank Councilman Thomas and City Council for this initiative and bringing light to this vital topic. When I think of Black-founded and led schools, it is very reminiscent of the establishment of historically Black colleges and universities. They are both meant to serve the needs of African-American population, in which they have excelled beyond measure. It is still the same today, where our children are denied access to opportunities and additional resources. For this reason, I celebrate and support Black-led schools, such as Universal Institute Charter School, for their overwhelming drive to ensure that our children have what they need. They provide successful images of what it means to be Black and successful. They provide successful images that Black people can excel despite any disparities. Black-led schools are vital to our children's success because they foster a positive sense of community, culture, and high academic standards. Black students do well when they feel supported and can identify with their educators. They have the rest of their life to be a minority. So it is very important that they be a majority in a high-achieving Black school. And I celebrate UICS because my daughter, she was accepted to all of her high schools that she chose, and she was able to maintain a 4.0 GPA since kindergarten at this school. And I have 2 Black sons, and they are supported and they are valued, and I wouldn't have my children at any other school, and that is why it is important to have schools such as UICS and other Black-led schools. And again, thank you. My name is Nicole Brown.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate it.
Diane Corvin Levy.
He is not on the line.
Saqib Bhatti.
Yes, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning, Council
State
President.
your name for the record. Proceed with your testimony, please.
Yes, good morning, Council President Clark and members of the City Council. My name is Saqib Bhatti, and I'm the Co-Executive Director of the Action Center on Race and the Economy, or ACRE. Thank you to Councilmember Kendra Brooks for inviting me here to speak and for her leadership on the Cancel Wall Street resolution. That's ultimately about winning more money to invest in public services and stopping Wall Street from profiting from our communities. I strongly support this resolution. Across the country, Wall Street needs $161 billion in interest payments on municipal debt. Here in Philadelphia, every year the city spends more than $245 million a year in interest payments to Wall Street investors, and the school district spends $145 million a year. The way we currently finance our government does not make any sense. Even though municipal borrowers have a default rate of less than 0.2%, we're forced to pay $1 in interest for every dollar that we borrow. Furthermore, cities with higher concentrations of people of color, like Philadelphia, are forced to pay even more. Banks already make money by discriminating against us, foreclosing on us, nickeling and diming us with fees, investing in private prisons to lock us up, financing fossil fuel infrastructure that's polluting our communities, and selling us predatory products. They shouldn't be able to profit from redlining our state and local governments too. Already, Philadelphia has been leading the country in work to create a public bank so that we can keep our money here locally. There's more to be done to ensure that we can invest in public services like schools, healthcare, transit, and more. There's no reason for
I think we had City Council cut off. They're having some technical issues on their end at City Council. I'm not sure if City Council is aware of that or if the technicians who are streaming us audio here into WURD are aware that they are having technical issues on their end. That is not WURD, that is Philadelphia City Council. So we're going to try to raise them back. But City Council just suddenly cut off. I also noticed some issues with their live video feed on their website at phlcouncil.com. So I'll make a notation of it on social media. While I'm doing that, I'm going to kind of tag them right now on Twitter to see, because they may not be aware that their broadcast has been cut off. Hey, at PHL Council, your broadcast has been cut off. Please fix. So, you know, that's something that's out of our control here on WURD. We have, though, however, on many an occasion, you know, particularly through the intrepid Troy Wilmore, told them, hey, you know, here's a better way you can kind of do this technically to make sure that those live feeds that you're providing to us here for the listening audience can be better. So it's not like we haven't told them, we have. So right now we have City Council cut off. A number of comments today. The public comments section or segment of Philadelphia City Council rather busy today, at least from the sounds of it. While we wait on City Council, let's go ahead and open up the phone lines while we wait on Philadelphia City Council to come back to us. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900. We're just waiting for Philadelphia City Council to come back to us. So once again, had a major glitch, although some of the city council members were complaining of some issues with broadband or having some broadband internet connection issues. So it could be reflective of something that's happening citywide. So we're not sure, but all we know is that it's whatever it is, it's something that is on their end currently, and it's out of our control. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and open up the phone lines, get reactions to what you've been hearing transpire in Philadelphia City Council. 215-634-8065, toll free 866-361-0900 here on Reality Check. We were hearing a number of comments on bills, including bill number 210187, which is basically a resolution honoring the Women's March in Philadelphia that took place a few years back. Also, bill number 210190, which is a bill, a resolution that is essentially honoring Juneteenth, or making Juneteenth a major, making sure that that's something that's celebrated. Let me read the actual bill. Yeah, urging the U.S. Congress to pass Senate Bill 475 and House Resolution 1320, which would designate Juneteenth as a national holiday. So that's been introduced by Kenyatta Johnson. 210187, which I was just talking about before, recognizing the Women's March on Philadelphia during Women's History Month 2021. So those were just some comments there, people just saying that they appreciated members of council introducing those. I feel like the more important comments, however, because if I were running council, I'd be finding time to focus on the structural issues, the real important issues. I mean, I think resolutions are nice and they're important, and they are a very useful political tool, particularly for elected officials, because you want to show your base that you appreciate what they do, and so you honor people and you honor certain organizations and you honor certain events, and those are fine. Sometimes I do feel like honorific resolutions tend to take up a rather inordinate amount of time during, especially in a city as troubled as Philadelphia. There are so many issues and challenges, so many things wrong with Philadelphia that have been going wrong for so much time. I just feel like I feel like just the emphasis should be during city council sessions as a whole. This is just my opinion, so I'm just kind of throwing my opinion out there. And I know a lot of other people, because I've had other people talk to me about it, feel the same way. I just feel like I feel like maybe it's time to sort of figure out sort of a bold new way to sort of set aside another kind of time, a separate time for those honorific resolutions, and really make sure that council business, when they meet as a whole, is focused on the structural issues that need to get fixed or need to get addressed. We still have some very urgent, and not just the pandemic either, for so long, since all of us can remember, we've been dealing with high poverty, high distress, and high structural dysfunction and systemic racism in the city of Philadelphia for quite some time. So we really got to get down to, as they say, brass knuckles on a regular basis, particularly in our legislative institutions, or in city legislative institutions like the city council. A very important matter, and I'm very happy that is being highlighted, and I like the way that Councilmember Isaiah Thomas framed this. We did hear quite a bit of commentary, quite a bit of public comment on his resolution to focus on the mistreatment of Black-led, Black-owned K-12 education institutions in the city of Philadelphia. That is and that's come under the umbrella of this Black Schools Matter movement that has been bubbling for some time in the city of Philadelphia. Particularly Black-led, publicly funded schools in the city of Philadelphia do feel mistreated. They do feel that they're being underfunded. They felt like they also are dealing with many inequities in terms of the city and the state's relationship with them. And so that is something that should be, because there are many black families, black households, black students, which are relying on those institutions and are looking for alternatives outside of these long time, as we've talked about that on this program quite a bit, these very dysfunctional, abusive, and racist school systems. Racist K through 12 school systems that have created also these school to prison pipelines and have not worked very well for many of our children in our communities. So, you know, these types of institutions, whether they're on the K through 12 level or there are historically black colleges and universities, these types of institutions, or trying to build up or sustain these types of institutions, it's just so important. It's just so critical and crucial. If we could do more of this, or if we're in a position to do more of this, we should. So I totally appreciate the council member raising that as an issue and rallying residents, constituents to comment on it. That's an important structural issue. You know, trying to figure out like exactly, you know, the fate and the future of our children by making sure that we're getting the schooling correct, that we're getting that part of their lives. We're, first of all, we're protecting them when they're in a K through 12 institution, and we're also making sure that they're educated properly and that they are also high achievers academically. That's an important structural issue. I can listen to public comment on that all day. I honestly, I could on issues like that, right? So not a whole lot city council can do about a resolution. I mean, it's nice. There's not a whole lot that the city council can do in sort of nudging the Congress to make Juneteenth a national holiday. It's nice. Okay, you know, yeah, go ahead, submit a resolution on it. But you know, these are the types of things that we need to understand, that the public comment period can be leveraged and can be used to really put pressure on the council to act and on just City Hall in general, whether it's on the council and the mayor, or all of them collectively, to act more urgently on these issues that we've been dealing with for generations in the city of Philadelphia. That's why that's why that public comment period is there. If the city council week after week hears more and more people participating in public comment period and really being focused on very serious and urgent matters that are dealing with the very desperate condition of black people, brown people, low income, impoverished people, food insecure, hungry, rent troubled people, unemployed, underemployed people in the city of Philadelphia. And you're hearing that week after week, people who've been also are facing issues as far as gentrification and zoning, because there are bills that are being introduced regularly in the council that are dealing with these issues. So there are opportunities to rally public conversation and discourse around those bills and paying very close attention to them. You might start to see sort of a big shift in terms of how council discusses or deliberates on these issues during these meetings of the whole, and also how they react to them, how they respond to them. I'm just saying. So that's just my opinion. I'm just going to throw that out there. And I think there's a lot, well, based on conversations I have with a number of folks who are Philly residents or who watch Philly very closely, who care much about the city, I hear that quite a bit as well. Okay, Philadelphia City Council is back. Looks like we worked out the technical glitch, or they worked out the technical glitch on their end. So let's go ahead and tune in.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, before I call for the adoption of the resolution, I just wanted to note for the record that in 1990, when I was in high school, I had the opportunity to intern with my mother mentor, Councilwoman Marion Tasco, and my other mother mentor, Councilwoman Augusta Clark. And I was telling someone the other day, it was only because they let me be around that I had an opportunity to meet some of the really historic game changers in the city of Philadelphia from all walks of life, but particularly in the African American community. And when I think about some of the legal beagles, you know, I think about the late, great Charles Bowser, I think about the late, great Obra Kanoto. And of course, our very own Bernard Smalley, Bernie Smalley, as he is affectionately called by all of us. Now, I do have to note for the record that when we had our technical difficulties, our whip from the mighty 4th Councilmanic District representing West Philadelphia, reminded us that, Charles Bowser and Bernard Smalley hail from West Philadelphia. All credit and humble respect given Whip Jones and Obra Kanoto hail from our Mount Airy. But it is with this spirit in mind that we just wanted to take an opportunity to congratulate you, Bernie, to tell you that we appreciate all that you have contributed to the Philadelphia community over the years, and that it's because people like you, Charles Bowser and Obra Kanoto, sought to share some of your legal prowess and success in trying to motivate, inspire, encourage young people and to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots, that we are a much better city for it. And to Jackie Smalley, Jackie, thank you for sharing Bernie with us all. And it's with that spirit in mind, Mr. President, that I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second. Thank you. Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Green. Shall I say one of the newest members of the Board of City Trust?
Yes, in conjunction with my colleague, Councilmember Mark Swiller, is also part of the Board of City Trust, and West Philadelphians proud, both Councilmembers Gilmore Richardson and Councilman Jones, who always says West is best. I'd like to second Councilmember Parker's resolution.
Thank you. It's been moved and enthusiastically seconded. The resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
And that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 210-184.
A resolution remembering Henrietta Lacks and honoring her contribution to modern medicine, including the development of COVID-19 vaccines.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? The ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to request a leave to do council business, but I wanted to be recorded aye on all bills and resolutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I do believe we have an amendment also coming up on the calendar today. Just want to be recorded aye on the amendment.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman, thank you. Let the record reflect that Councilwoman leave of absence. She has left her vote an aye on all bills, resolutions, and amendments. Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 210-185.
A resolution commending and recognizing Michael Hand on the occasion of his retirement from his outstanding career with the Eastern Atlantic States Regional Council of Carpenters and his service to the Philadelphia community.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mr. President, before I move for the adoption of this resolution, I formally wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate Mike Hand, who is a 35-year member of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America. I met Mike Hand formally, Mr. President, in my role here in City Council as a legislator. So it was sort of legislator just interacting with a member of labor. I would argue to you, Mr. President, and our colleagues in the public, that out of that grew a friendship when Mike Hand began to talk about what life was like growing up in the city of Philadelphia, in a fish town, the working class fish town community that he was reared in. And for those of you who really know Philadelphia, Mike would call it Flatiron. And you know what that means. And so he would call it Flatiron, and I said, wow. We talked about Mansion, Mr. President, and 31st in York, 11th in Indiana, and Topside, West Oak Lane, 19th in Cheltenham. But we also had tough conversations about the history in some of those communities and who was allowed to go where, you know, and do what. And then we talked about the beauty in those neighborhoods and the sense of community, and that residents and neighbors took care of each other, and of the power of little leagues and all of those athletic associations, and how folks were just neighborly. It's with that spirit in mind that I want to say to you, Mike Hand, thank you for your contributions to our city. Now that you will be formally retired from your carpenter duties, I want you to know that I will continue to rely on you for our grassroots community activism and organizing. Mr. President, what people don't see behind the scenes is that when we council members get calls from constituents to do things like put a ramp up for someone who is physically disabled, but they don't have the money to do it themselves, to go fix something, you know, in someone's house, and they don't have homeowners insurance, and you need it done. Every time we've called on you, Mike Hand, you've always responded in the affirmative. I don't care if it was Vernon Road, Ogons Avenue, you've been there, and we'll continue to rely on you to help us solve many of the challenges facing our communities. And thank you for being authentic while doing it, and everything you did. No one saw most of it on social media because you would simply give the word to get the work done, and the next thing people would know, the work would be fixed. So thank you for being authentic. And with that, Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second. Okay, and we should call for the question. But
Council President.
I got you, Councilman.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I'd like to add a little bit what Council, our Majority Leader, Council Member Park, had just stated on Michael Hand's contributions to Philadelphia. Michael Hand's character as an individual. I've known Mike for 25, almost 30 years. I guess that is starting to show my age. So he has been nothing but a contributor, a fighter, and a defender, all right, for people in this city, all right, emerging contractors, making sure that the Carpenters Union are reflective of the city of Philadelphia in every aspect, at every level, giving people the opportunities, giving people the chance to have a career, giving people the chance by leadership in giving back to the communities, as Councilmember Parker was talking about, all right, whether it's veterans, whether it's people of low income, people who suffered a tragic situation with rebuilding parts of their house and accommodated for handicap accessible ramps and accommodations in their homes so they can live and remain in their place of domicile in the city of Philadelphia. Yes, he is. We're an alum of the same high school. He's from Fishtown. They call it now. All right. Port Fishington in some location would drive him crazy, all right, because we are a city of neighborhoods, and Fishtown is Fishtown, and that's how he is, and he doesn't forget his roots in the city of Philadelphia, but he has represented people for his entire career. So I want to thank him for doing so, wish him the best of luck and continued success as a former employee of the Carpenters, but as a person of the city of Philadelphia who constantly give back. And I want to thank Councilmember Parker for allowing me to share in his honor here with this resolution. So, Michael Hand, congratulations, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Councilman. So it's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Please read the title of resolution number 210186.
A resolution recognizing and supporting the accomplishments of women and girls throughout history on the occasion of Women's History Month.
The chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 210187.
A resolution recognizing the Women's March on Philadelphia during Women's History Month 2021 and the organizers who hosted 4 consecutive marches from 2017 to 2020.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I offer the motion, I wanted to, again, thank you and all of my colleagues who co-sponsored this resolution, recognizing the tireless efforts of the women who organized the Women's March here in Philadelphia for 4 years, from 2017 through 2020. And I just wanted to call them and mention them by name. I think it's important to speak their names and all the work they have done over the last few years on the march. So Nikki Bagby, Beth Finn, Amy Martin, Deja Lynn Alvarez, Laura, Allie Arter, Selena Susswell, Sarita Lewis, Bridget Gill, and Vicki Landers. On behalf of my colleagues and I, we say thank you for your tireless efforts. And with that, Council President, we move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of resolution number 210188.
A resolution also naming the 2200 block of North Salford as Geo L. Myers Way in honor of George Linwood Myers III to commemorate his legacy and longtime dedication to various Philadelphia organizations and as an advocate of vulnerable populations.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Jones for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption.
Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the resolution be adopted. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 210189.
A resolution recognizing Rochelle Shelley Cameron on the occasion of her appointment as chair of the U.S. Policy Council for Airports Council International.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, 210190.
A resolution urging the U.S. Congress to pass Senate Bill 475 and House Resolution 1320, which designate Juneteenth as a national holiday.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Johnson for a motion. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of Councilman Johnson, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted. Mr. Decker, resolution number 210192.
A resolution calling on the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States to offer long-term loans with terms of up to 30 years to meet the borrowing needs of state and local governments and government units in the United States without charging any interest or fees, and urging the City Treasurer's Office to enter into conversations with the financial institutions underwriting the city's bonds to negotiate long-term loans with terms of up to 30 years to meet the city's borrowing needs without charging any interest or fees.
Thank you. Chair recognizes
WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted in spite of the banking conspiracy to alter the resolution. Thank you, Councilwoman. Clerk will please read the title of resolutions number 210194.
A resolution honoring the athletes of the class of 2020 for their incomplete seasons and shortened high school athletic career due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Motion.
Thank you. Mr. President, I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, were you still on 210194?
It's frozen.
Okay.
Is that 194 or 196? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, no problem, Councilman Squilla. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded that the resolution be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. The clerk will please read. Yes.
I had a little
Chair
technical
recognizes
difficulty.
Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Leader. That little technical difficulty. I just want to thank you for the introduction of the resolution. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Will the clerk please read the title of resolution number 210196?
A resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 538 Dudley, 639 Cantrell, 2842 through 44, and 2846 Tulip Street, located in the 1st Councilmanic District.
Chair thanks the clerk. The chair recognizes Councilman Squilla for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the resolution be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted. Will the clerk please read the title of resolution number 210200?
A resolution recognizing March 8, 2021 as International Women's Day to raise awareness of the adverse oppression and inequities that women have experienced and continue to experience globally, and to celebrate the achievements of women around the world and campaign for positive change.
The chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass for a motion on the resolution.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded that the resolution be adopted. All those in favor will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it, and the resolution is adopted, and our president is no longer frozen.
You're on mute.
Oh, come off mute, Mr. Press.
Yeah, thank you, Councilwoman. That's what I get for talking about conspiracy. I will never say that again. Councilwoman, where did you leave me? Where did I leave off? Where did you?
I left you, Mr. President, on bill number 200618.
618. Okay. Man, boy, these guys are good. Keep my mouth shut from now on. Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, Leader. Mr. Decker, please read the title of bill number 200618.
An ordinance amending Chapter 94200 of the 94200 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Donation Bins to modify the locations at which donation bins shall be permitted.
Thank you. This bill having been read on 2 different days. The question now is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass.
Aye.
Councilwoman Brooks.
Aye.
Councilman Don.
Aye. Aye.
Councilwoman Gauthier.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green.
Aye. Mute it for a minute.
Councilwoman Kim is voting aye. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Jones.
Aye.
Councilman O.
Aye.
Councilman O'Neill.
Aye.
Councilwoman Parker.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez is voting aye. Councilman Squilla.
Aye.
Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 16, the nays are 0. Majority of all members.
Council President
Yeah.
President Clark, this is Councilman Heenan.
You're here.
I'd like to be recorded as aye. I apologize for the delay.
No problem, sir. Thank you. Ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of all members having voted in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title of bill number 210122.
An ordinance amending section 94116 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Public Health Emergency Leave to establish leave time for public health emergencies and modify existing provisions concerning the paid sick leave and make technical changes.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom, I believe, had a question on the amendment.
Thank you, Council President. I do have 3 questions for the sponsor, Councilmember Brooks, about the amendments and this bill for clarity of for the record. So I'll just go through each question one at a time. So can you explain why you included and then removed the language that allows employers who are eligible for federal tax reimbursements when providing the emergency leave that's called for in this legislation? I think it's important for the public to understand your position on this point and the impact it has on employers if federal tax reimbursements expire before the emergency order is lifted.
Thank you, Councilmember. Council President, I would like to address the amendments that I sent around today and the clarification that I sent around this morning at the beginning of council sessions. And hopefully they'll answer Councilmember Dom's questions. And if not, I will proceed to answer his questions following that.
Can I give you the other 2 questions so you have them all together?
Sure.
The other question I had was the rationale for the 160-hour threshold for paid time off, PTO. So I've heard various iterations of 120, 160, and 180 days that were floated. So I'm just wondering what the conversations were among the various groups you spoke to and what the advantages or disadvantages are for the various number of hours. And it seems that other than having an impact on the very large corporations here in Philadelphia, which are fewer than we'd like, this might hurt some growth industry businesses who can't afford this right now, like businesses that are close to the margin with like 501 employees. Can you walk through the thought process on this and the costs for some of these types of growing businesses? And the last question was, I want to make sure I understand correctly that the city is subject to the requirements of this bill. I wanted to get a confirmation on that. That would be it. Thanks.
Okay, so I'll start with the tax credits. Just as our previous version of the public health emergency leave, if a business with fewer than 500 employees provides leave for the reasons listed in our bill, they will qualify for a tax credit from the federal government. Our legislation was intentionally aligned with the federal reasons for leave so that businesses can take advantage of the federal tax credits. We have not elected to include explicit language referencing the tax credit in this bill because there's a chance, albeit small, that tax credits may expire before the Commonwealth's emergency declaration is lifted, which would leave workers unprotected and potentially causing us to have to introduce a third public health emergency leave bill. And we've already left workers unprotected for January and February, and now most of March, and we can't do that again. In terms of the rationale for the 160 hours, the 160-hour threshold, we cannot require essential workers to use all of their vacation time for the year. So we negotiated with several stakeholders a reasonable number, and 160 is the number that we came with finally. Everyone may not agree with this, but we're in negotiations with multiple stakeholders. And what else? Will the city fall under this legislation? Yes. The city, like all employers with more than 50 employees, will have to comply with the requirements of this bill. And we've been in discussion with administration about that. Does that answer all your questions?
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
With that,
Mr. Council President?
Yes, Chair recognizes Councilwoman.
I wanted to know, thank you, but I wanted to also note for the record, based on Councilmember Dom's question, that I thought that the generous employer exemption that was presented before, dealt with the issue with the city. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the record.
yes.
Okay.
The generous employer aligned with what was expected for the paid time off for the city. City's employees are included.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Councilmember Brooks.
No problem.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks.
Councilman Dom, you good? Okay. And
Council President, point of information.
Yes. Who? I'm sorry. Who's that?
Councilman Green, point of information.
Councilman Green.
Yeah, I just want to get some perspective and make sure I clearly understand your response to Councilmember Dom. So you're saying that by taking out the amendment that you put in for small business supports, that does not create a conflict with the legislation at the federal level? My understanding is that, maybe let me step back. What was the reasoning of putting in the small business supports initially in the first amendment that you circulated?
The first set of amendments that were sent out, we sent it out prematurely, and we had not finalized if that was going to be an amendment. That's why we sent the second version as well as the explanation along this morning. We were in consideration of it, but the fact that we were already left hanging by creating a sunset on the initial paid public health emergency leave bill, and we did not want to have to go through a third round of creating this public health emergency leave. So we decided to leave it out.
But wouldn't there be so there's not a conflict between the federal law and what's proposed under this law under the time period that the tax credits are available? Because I believe under the federal law, it talks about 10 days as opposed to 80 hours. I just want to make sure that both employees as well as employers have clarity in reference to what applies.
Well, it talks about two work weeks, which could be either classified as 10 days or 80 hours. One work week, 40 hours. So we classified it together. So I'm not really understanding.
Well, my understanding.
I did double check when I saw the 10 days, it kind of threw me off as well. But then the realization that the language talks about 10 days and 80 hours, all equivalent to a 2-week work week. So they would still be included. It's only up to a work week. The work session, which is 80 hours or 10 days.
So the American Rescue Plan language says 80 hours or 10 days.
Let me think. I need to put. I think.
Just trying to make sure that both employees and employers have proper guidance. Mine is concerned in making sure that the language that's in the American Rescue Plan, we're mirroring that here at the local level, so that if I'm an employer or employee, I know I'm basing it on 10 days or 80 hours, because that could possibly be different. And I just want to make sure that you're saying that under the American Rescue Plan, it's saying one or the other.
No, so there shouldn't be a conflict between this bill and the federal legislation. It says up to 2 weeks or 80 hours. And we got that information around the information, and we sent links to the IRS classification, which provides 2 weeks or 80 hours language as well. And it's also listed in the language that was in the email sent earlier.
Right, but I guess my question is, why can't we just use the exact same language from the American Rescue Plan, so that way there's no confusion for employees or employers in reference to, do I receive 80 hours and or 10 days? And if I'm an employer, I can get tax credit for that exact same amount. We're just for the ease of simplicity, considering that we're dealing with a lot of information, a lot of changes. I'm still just trying to digest all the information in American Rescue Plan. Each day I'm learning more information. I just think for an ease of getting information out for employers and employees, we use a similar language that's in American Rescue Plan. Also, I'm not sure if there's any regulations that need to be adopted to implement this proposed legislation. Because there was regulations that were needed in last year's bill that expired. That's why this legislation is important to protect both employees and also employers.
So from my understanding, the language is the same. We just don't have an explicit reference to the tax credit for the reason that I stated earlier, and that is the only difference. And I believe that I'm not really sure what else to say about that. The language is the same. I just did not include the piece of reference directly to the tax credit, but it is the same, and it has been verified with legal.
Okay, because it seemed like when I read the bill and then I read the amendment, it seems like the amendment is just further clarifying that those who are eligible for reimbursement through the federal tax credits are eligible for that, which kind of goes in context with your 7A in reference to requiring, to the extent that federal state laws require employers to provide paid leave or paid sick leave related to COVID-19, they can substitute under federal or state law for its obligations in reference to and what coincides the relevant federal or state laws. So I just was, because I thought the amendment was from a clarity perspective to make sure that people understood, both employees and employers, that you can receive federal tax credits. So I'm still just trying to make sure that we're keeping the same language which is in the American Rescue Plan here at the local level, so that way everything's consistent and there's not a lot of confusion and concern. And so I just make sure I understand, you're saying that the language is exactly the same on the American Rescue Plan?
Yes, the language is the same, and the links to the tax credit means that the leave could expire. And that has happened once, and we don't want to happen again. That is the reason I did not and do not want to explicitly link the federal legislation. But the language is the same, and anyone who provides public health emergency leave and qualifies for tax credits will receive the tax credit. It's the same language.
Okay, so if it's the same language, why didn't we just stick with the original amendment? Because the original amendment provides additional clarity about federal tax credits that in 7A does not. So if it's the same language, I think that was my assumption that the purpose of the amendment that you circulated yesterday was to make sure that the language is mirroring the federal law, to make sure that both employees and employers understood what they're able to receive under this public health emergency leave due to COVID-19.
The reason we didn't do it is because the tax credits will expire. Now, in terms of understanding the language, I'm certain that most employers have folks that can help them understand this language very clearly. My concern was to make sure that working folks have access to paid sick emergency leave at 160 hours and that it happens as soon as possible, because people were left out for 3 months, left out in the cold because of legislation that was requested for us to put a sunset on this as of December 31st. Now we have Philadelphians in the peak of the pandemic that were out of paid sick legislation that we have left hanging. So I will not link the federal legislation to this because I do not want to go through a third round of public health emergency leave if this were to expire. We are on the uptick. Vaccination is available, and we need to protect our citizens.
No, I clearly support, and that's why I voted for this to get out of the committee, because the legislation that you introduced last year expired, and we need to make sure that employees are covered during the pandemic, which is still going on. I was just trying to get clarity in reference to the tax credit issue, because I saw the amendment and then I saw the new amendment, and I was just trying to get some perspective on, because clearly there was a reason why you put it in, and I thought it was for the clarity of making sure that the American rescue plan coincided with this legislation to make sure employees and employers knew all the perspectives. That's why I asked the question, trying to get that understanding.
Well, I hope I answered your question clearly. Have I?
I got a better perspective from you in reference to the amendment. I will look at this again. I think you did say there was some an email that you provided where had some reference to the American Rescue Plan. I did not get a chance to click onto that link because I was just looking at both amendments. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. And is that it? Before I call for the Councilwoman for a motion on her amendment, I just want to, for the record, on 200618, I don't believe the Councilman O, was he recorded in that? Hold on.
Yes, Mr. President. I have him as voting aye.
Oh, so it was, okay, so it was 17. Okay, just want to make sure I got a note sent to me about Councilman O. Okay, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks for an amendment. Motion on the amendment.
A good note, I hope.
Absolutely. Always with me, Councilman.
Thank you, Council President. With that, I would like to offer an amendment to the bill number 210122. A copy of the amendment has been circulated to all members of council, and I move for adoption of the amendment.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. Ayes have it. And bill number 210122 has been amended. Bill number 210122 as amended will be placed on the final passes calendar for our next session of council. Thank you very much. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolution?
A resolution authorizing the Committee on Housing, Neighborhood Development, and the Homeless to hold hearings examining the race gap in home appraisals and its impact on home ownership and wealth accumulation in Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
A resolution authorizing the Committee on Education to hold hearings to identify and examine potential systemic biases and oversight that create inequalities between Black and white-led schools, resulting in poor resources for support for Black-founded and led institutions, introduced by Councilman Thomas.
Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Thank you, Council President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Second.
Been moved and properly second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Ayes are good. Ayes are good. Resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. That completes our calendar for the day. Prior to recognizing members for speeches, I will note for the record at this time that we will use the chat feature available in Microsoft's Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized in order to comply with the Sunshine Act. And the chat feature must only be used for this particular purpose. With that said, are there any speeches on behalf of the minority? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank every member of council for voting to pass the resolution I introduced last week, calling on the Federal Reserve to offer zero-interest, long-term loans to municipalities. Currently, Philadelphia pays over $245 million in rent interest fees to Wall Street banks each year, while the School District of Philadelphia pays over $145 million every year. As the poorest city in the country, it is unthinkable that we are hemorrhaging this amount of money just to line the pockets of wealthy, and the money should be spent as needed on our own city services. With the recent passage of President Biden's stimulus bill, the city of Philadelphia is slated to receive $1.3 billion from the federal government, just enough to offset the budget deficit caused by the pandemic. This is welcome news, but we know far from enough to address the challenges. The challenges our city is facing. From toxic school conditions to a shortage of low-income housing to looming climate crisis, Philadelphia will require a massive influx of funds to support its most vulnerable community members and create a livable environment for future generations. The pandemic has exposed large holes in our city's social safety net and revealed the damage that decades of systemic inequality in the form of chronic underfunding and austerity has caused. The Cancel Wall Street campaign, led by the Action Center on Race and the Economy and supported by community leaders across the country, has been embraced by cities like Los Angeles, and I'm proud that Philadelphia is joining the charge. So I want to thank Council Members Gautier, Gim, Keenan, Gilmore Richardson, and Dom for their co-sponsorship. And I look forward to continuing to fight for investments in our communities alongside you all. Thank you, Council President, and thank you to my colleagues.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you very much. Speeches on behalf of the majority. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I introduce two resolutions that raise awareness of two very important health issues for the month of March: nutrition and brain injury. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and diabetes are the leading causes of death and disability in the United States. In fact, 6 out of every 10 adults has a chronic disease, and 4 out of every 10 has multiple chronic diseases. As a result of uninformed food choices, risk factors of chronic diseases have been identified at even younger ages. Good nutrition not only reduces the risk of disease, but also improves well-being and health, promotes safe pregnancies and birth, strengthens immune systems, and lengthens lifespans. However, we also have to acknowledge that having access to nutritious food and being able to give healthy eating and physical habits are a privilege. Good nutrition is not accessible, especially to those who are low income and living in food deserts and food swamps. Organizations like Philabundance, the Black Women's Health Alliance, the Coalition Against Hunger, North Philly Peace Park, and Weaver's Way are all examples of leaders in Philadelphia working to increase access to fresh food and health, wellness, and nutrition education every day. I want to thank you for your work in reducing health disparities in our city and working towards promoting a healthier, more equitable Philadelphia. On another note, it is important to increase understanding of chronic brain injury. More than 210,000 children and adults in Pennsylvania are living with a disability due to traumatic brain injury, which is just one example of a chronic brain injury. This year's theme for Brain Injury Awareness Month is #MoreThanMyBrainInjury, to help educate others on what it's like to live with a brain injury and reduce stigma. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented unique challenges for students suffering from brain injuries. The collaboration required between teachers and families is inhibited by distance learning and lack of daily structure that can cause increased dysregulation and negative behaviors, further resulting in stress on the student and the adult. Additionally, too much screen time results in eye strain, increased fatigue, and other symptoms that are amplified in persons with brain injuries. Groups like the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania, McGee Rehab Hospital of Jefferson Health, and Penn Medicine are dedicated to improving the quality of life of those affected by brain injuries and their families. They each have a number of support groups, education campaigns, and programs for brain injury survivors and their families. Thank you for your dedicated service to all of them and all Philadelphians and their families who are living with brain injury. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Council President. Yesterday, we recognized, I believe, the 1-year anniversary of the first COVID diagnosis in our city. It's been a rough year for all of us, particularly though our young people whose high school and college years have really been impacted. And that's why I think it's important today that we recognize when good things happen, particularly as it impacts our younger people. Last night, really good. Yes.
Kindergartens also got snatched away from a lot of children as well, sir. Thank you.
Last night, a really good thing happened in Philadelphia. Drexel Dragon men's basketball team won the Colonial Athletic League championship game, making it to the NCAA tournament for the first time in 25 years. Congratulate President Fry, Athletic Director Zilmer, and Coach Spiker and the team for showing us how teamwork and determination make the difference of our young men and women. That example of teamwork and determination is how I want to begin my remarks today. Each week since the beginning of February, it's been about 5 weeks now, I've taken the opportunity to address with my colleagues on council one overriding message. We cannot fight this pandemic if we do not come together around a massive plan. Today I'm going to skip the rhetoric and give you the numbers and let the numbers speak for themselves. On February 22nd, the CDC allocated a total of 63,690 first and second doses combined. On March 1st, the CDC upped its allocation to a total of 68,640 first and second doses combined. On March 8th, the CDC once again upped its allocation to a total of 70,980 first and second doses combined. 3 days ago, the Health Department informed us that during the week of February 22nd, the city administered 51,300 first and second doses. They told us that the following week of March 2nd, we administered over 90,000 doses, which included the FEMA site allocation of 42,000 doses that week. So the city basically dosed 50,000 people. Given that the city has received over 200,000 doses from the CDC over the past 3 weeks, has only had the capacity to deliver 150,000 of these doses, according to the city's accounts. We are sitting on today 50,000 doses that have not been distributed to Philadelphians. 50,000. And unless we act now, these numbers are only going to get worse. Follow along with me for a moment so we understand the impact. If we need to vaccinate, let's just say 1.2 million Philadelphians, and 2/3 of these vaccinations require 2 doses of either the Pfizer or Moderna dose, we will need to administer 1.6 million doses of Pfizer or Moderna vaccines and 400,000 of the Johnson & Johnson doses, which is 1 shot, for a total of 2 million doses. 2 million. According to the Health Department website, the city has administered 435,000 doses to date. Yet, according to the city, as of 2 weeks ago, 42% of our first doses went to non-residents. Meaning the total number of fully vaccinated, 2-dosed Philadelphians at present is somewhere around 100,000. With that, our goal, our objective here, has to be to administer approximately 1.8 million more doses by the end of May, which is the timeline President Biden has laid out for distribution. Earlier this week, the Health Department told us we don't have the capacity to dramatically scale up our vaccination efforts, limited by the number of providers we currently have. In addition to the providers in place now, the Health Department is ramping up 6 sites, which can do 400 to 500 shots per day. But these sites are only open 1 day a week, so they collectively only add 3,000 doses to our distribution totals per week. The Inquirer today reports that the Health Department has approved 60 more sites. But if we can only keep 6 sites open 1 day a week, how are these sites going to get us to where we need to be? Our inability to develop a plan that we have requested that is scalable, to meet vaccine supply chains will only delay our ability to save lives and to get Philadelphians back to where they want to be, and frankly, after this long year, where they deserve. According to my calculations, if we vaccinate at our current pace, we'll be at herd immunity in maybe 7 months, depending on how long FEMA sticks around for help. That's not the worst news. Look at what we're being allocated and what we're able to distribute. In about 3 weeks, we'll have to reserve all our doses for those who need a second dose. Example is the convention center. As of March 23rd, no more first doses there. They're going to switch to second doses. This means that we won't have capacity to administer more first-round doses to people, just as more contagious mutant strains are entering our city. I think it's important that we talk about the numbers as they relate to our equity goals for distribution. We were told at FEMA site at the convention center, a neighborhood site that is 67% white was selected to achieve racial equity. Yet an analysis of the city's registry, which is the only way to get an appointment at this site, shows that less than 20% of the registry live in the 15 most underserved communities of color in the city. When you put our biggest vaccination site in a white neighborhood and use an invitation list that is overwhelmingly white, it seems we're set up to fail on equity. When we first announced the Philly Special Plan, I and others said this is the best plan for scaling up our vaccination capacity and achieving racial equity. Today I say that this is not just the best plan, it may only be the only plan we have to get the job done at this point. Our role here is to ensure the administration meets our expectations and the public's expectations on the delivery of this vaccination. In the last week, we discovered a lot of details about what we're doing, and it's not looking great. Now we have to fix it. And I hope all of you will stand with me to encourage the mayor to open up Lincoln Financial Field and other large-scale sites with a plan. We need a plan to deliver 1.8 million doses before the end of May. Because as of now, we are on the wrong track and we are heading in the wrong direction. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. Last week we adopted a resolution to acknowledge and memorialize those who had lost so much due to this pandemic. In today's council session, we've heard a number of our colleagues talking about COVID-19. In fact, the World Health Organization, March 11th, 1 year ago today, identified COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus as a global pandemic. And as I reflect on last year, I was actually attending a National League of Cities conference in D.C. That was actually the last conference I attended. And that's when we were just really starting to get a sense of this pandemic and the impact it was starting to have, but then we had no idea the impact it would have throughout the entire globe. And so as we moved into 2021, things are definitely looking up. But I think we get so caught up in all the issues of the day and all the news, sometimes we don't really reflect on the impact of a piece of legislation. Yesterday in DC, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 was passed, and I know the various papers and other outlets have covered some of the information in this plan. People are familiar with the $1,400 checks for individuals, but this plan is revolutionary in a lot of ways. We have not seen this type of impact at the local level, at the state level, and at the federal level in decades. This plan is going to expand child tax credit by about $300 a month, provide about $1.8 million in dollars for SNAP benefits. It's going to provide a significant amount of money for our school districts. School District of Philadelphia is looking to receive over $1 billion. It increases health insurance and extends unemployment benefits due to the pandemic and has opportunity for pension assistance, as well as helping those that have been entrepreneurs that have racial, ethnic background, that have experienced systemic discrimination, with aid through a $15 billion in economic injury disaster loans. It expands the Paycheck Protection Program, providing additional eligibility and additional funding for that program. For our restaurants, food and beverage establishments, we're looking at $28.6 billion, $25 billion specifically in one area, about $1.25 billion for shuttered venues. Then just locally here in the city of Philadelphia, our transportation authority, which has been decimated by this pandemic, expected to receive about $615 million. Airport, $115 million. And here locally as a city, we anticipate receiving over $1 billion. About half will be able to receive within 2 months, and then the other half will be able to draw down next year. So when we think about the American Rescue Plan, not only is it providing billions of dollars for states, and 19,000 municipalities around the country are going to benefit, just like here in Philadelphia, a lot of money in reference to trying to make sure the vaccination effort gets done in jurisdictions around the country, but it's also going to really impact poverty. Council President, in your statement the other day, you talked about how this is going to drastically reduce child poverty for a city that has a 25% poverty rate. The impact of the American Rescue Plan is not only a way we come back out of this pandemic, but it's also how we truly address poverty. To me, this is the closest thing we've had to the war on poverty from President Johnson. It's going to have ripple effects throughout this nation in many ways. And I just wanted to bring some of those things to our attention, because we get so busy with all the different issues that we're trying to deal with, that sometimes when we have real positive legislation that's really going to make an impact in citizens in the city of Philadelphia, we don't spend sometimes, I think, enough time to really talking about that. So in the coming days and weeks and months, we'll be getting more details of the specific details of the American Rescue Plan and how it's going to impact citizens in our city who've really been struggling for so long. And to me, what this really does is demonstrates why voting matters. You know, we went through a campaign last year, and some people will say, well, why should I participate? Why should I vote? This is an example of why voting matters. The fact that we've been able to change an administration and bring a president that was able to get the American Rescue Plan passed. In addition, by having voters in another state like Georgia elect 2 state senators. That's how that impacts us here in the city of Philadelphia. So I hope that as we continue to move forward and get more information regarding the American Rescue Plan, people will make that connection, that tie of why voting is important here in the city of Philadelphia, not just in one election, but every election, and how this is a really, as that time Vice President Biden said, BFD, this is really a BFD for the city of Philadelphia. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Council. What does that stand for? No, never mind.
I can't say that on
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Thank you, Council President, and good afternoon, everyone. As several members have noted, yesterday the American Rescue Plan was passed by the U.S. House of Representatives. The legislation will go to President Biden's desk for a final signature tomorrow. This is the most significant national stimulus effort since the New Deal. It can't be overstated how important this is and what a transformational impact it will have on towns and cities across the country, including Philadelphia. In addition to another round of direct payments for many Americans, an extension of unemployment benefits, and billions of dollars for vaccine distribution, schools, transit agencies, and housing assistance, the plan will provide flexible funding to states and cities that can be used to support a wide range of initiatives. So today I want to encourage our city and state leaders to meaningfully direct some of these funds towards gun violence prevention and intervention initiatives. We cannot pass up this opportunity to combat our city's gun violence crisis. It could not be more dire. More Americans died from gun violence in 2020 than in any other year on record. Here in Philadelphia, we nearly reached a record high number of homicides last year, and so far we're on track to exceed it in 2021. And what's especially disturbing is that juvenile homicide rates are skyrocketing. The number of minors who have lost their lives is up 200% from this time last year. And a large portion of this loss is taking place in my district. Mbaba Mingastaba, a 15-year-old resident of West Philly, died last week after being shot in the head. This past Tuesday night, another 15-year-old, Antonio Walker Jr., was fatally shot. And a 16-year-old who had been shot in October died as a result of his injuries on Tuesday night as well. The loss of these children is tragic and traumatic, not just for their family and friends, but for our entire community. Experts are attributing this disturbing spike in violence to the pandemic. And similar to the pandemic, we need to treat the gun violence crisis like the public health crisis that it is. This means implementing evidence-based programs that focus on prevention, intervention, and victim services. Because also like COVID, gun violence is contagious. Research suggests that even just witnessing a shooting can increase the probability that a young person will be involved in violence within the next 2 years. We are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to COVID, but our communities experiencing increased rates of gun violence remain under siege day in and day out. The way a government spends is a reflection of its values. I hope that we use this infusion of funds as an opportunity to reflect the fact that eradicating gun violence is a public safety priority, a public health priority, and a racial justice priority, all wrapped up in one. I look forward to working with my council colleagues and with the Kinney administration to see what we can do to move resources towards this issue immediately, now that help is on the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I just have a quick 2 issues that I want to address, and I want to start by thanking both Council Members Green and Council Member Gaultier for their comments regarding President Biden's historic game-changing $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan COVID-19 stimulus bill. Mr. President, I want to note for the record that Councilwoman Gaultier, Councilmember Gaultier, she hit the nail on the head when she talked about the flexible funding available for cities and states that is included in this package. It is important for Philadelphians to know because they are thinking about CARES and the other 2020 related stimulus dollars that had been distributed, from Washington, D.C. But what Philadelphians should know is that when we had to close a $750 million budget gap last year, and people couldn't understand why certain cuts were made when we received funding from the states, I'm not sure that people understood the help that came from Washington didn't give Philadelphia to flexibility to use that money to replace revenue that we lost as a result of COVID. It's with that spirit and intent in mind, Mr. President, that I want to say a huge thank you, on your behalf and all members of this body to President Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, all members of the Philadelphia delegation and our U.S. Senator Casey for his support of this bill, and to also say that we look forward to, under your leadership, Mr. President, engaging with our mayor, Jim Kinney, along with our Philadelphia congressional delegation, Boyle Evans and Mary Gay Scanlon, along with our state legislative leaders, that is Vincent Hughes and Williams, along with Leader McClinton, Whip Harris, and all members of the Philadelphia delegation in both chambers in Harrisburg, to make sure that we have a robust intergovernmental discussion and strategy for how we will employ the use of these dollars as we move forward. I also, Mr. President, need to say thank you to you and Mayor Kinney, because, you know, sometimes I think it's only a story if people think that we are at each other's throats. But I thank you, Mr. President, and Mayor Kinney for working together to come up with the strategy to move Philadelphia's budget process, the budget address, which would trigger the budget hearings, for moving them further down the line, giving us an opportunity for this federal legislation to be passed, so that some of the, you know, terrible decisions that we would have had to be considering, you know, with the potential $450 million, you know, budget hole that we had, we can now start from a true space. So I want to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to working with all of our colleagues in an intergovernmental way to address this issue. Now for the good stuff, Mr. President. Last night I had the great opportunity of Zooming with, and I want to make sure I get this right, the Philadelphia chapter of the Coalition of Labor Union Women here, as they honored some of Philadelphia trailblazers. They honored a lady by the name of Diana Monteith, who is the first African-American woman to join the Philadelphia Iron Workers Union, 405. It's a coincidence that she gave our prayer today, because they also honored Archbishop Mary Floyd Palmer, the first woman president of the Philadelphia Council of Clergy. They honored a lady I didn't know of, Mr. President, but they did a video on her. Her name is the late great Ann Feeney. She was a wonderful folk singer, and a political activist, and the first woman president of the Pittsburgh Musicians Union. And she also honored a lady we all know well and we love, Carl Stutes, the first African-American woman elected as the National Conference Public Employees Retirement System Secretary. And Carl and I, aside from her purple hair that I love, we connected because she was committed to pensions, you know, and retirement security. It's with that being said that I want to thank you, CLU, for acknowledging the efforts of those women who have been breaking through glass ceilings and knocking down bolted doors, to say to generations to come that they can too have an opportunity to succeed and sit at tables where they are not currently represented. So to Corinne Parker, who is the president of CLU, Councilmember Jones, she is not a resident of the 4th. She lives in the 9th Councilmatic District, just so you know. To all of the officers, trustees, executive board members of CLU. To Thelma Clements and Selena Hodges, thank you for your leadership. I also have to, for the record, note that Michelle Slay, Shoshana Bricklin, Vanessa Fields, Nina Ahmad, Hal and Sue Rosenthal, they were present with us, and I was also proud to join with my soror judge, Tamika Lane, my coalition sister, Kateria McCabe, judge and member of Kappa Alpha sorority, Lori Dumas, and Judge Maria McLaughlin. They were all present for this event, and it was just nice to see women from all walks of life, Mr. President, come together to lift each other up under the spirit and umbrella of solidarity. Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to shout out and thank my colleagues, starting with Member Thomas for his passionate defense of institutions of color today. That moved me, and it showed his commitment not only to the education process, but how committed he is as a parent to making sure that his children and all children get what they deserve by way of cultural competency. So I want to say that. I want to say thank you to Member Green, who put it succinctly as to how important the passage of that legislation was. Somebody asked me in a discussion, some of us, government junkie geeks tend to get together and talk about budgets. And they asked me, how bad is the upcoming budget? And before yesterday, the only thing I could say is real bad. And real bad meant that there were scenarios of 10 and 20% cuts by department, and what that would have meant to service delivery for the people that we represent. I want to shout out your leadership, President, because you can have any old captain of a ship during good weather and sunshine and, everybody's floating down the Delaware. But when the storms come, you need a captain of a ship that understands some of the, as you always say, the adult decisions, tough decisions we are paid to make and we're prepared to make. So that rescue wagon that came from our Philadelphia delegation, the Congress, the Senate, and the White House meant more than people actually know. That we were on our way to a very bad place. I want to thank Member Gardier for citing that in these good times, not to forget the systemic problems of gun violence. So now I raise one other area of focus. The school district is going to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of these dollars, manna from heaven or manna from Washington, right? Our children who have been at home, being educated, some in difficult circumstances, have suffered. I think we're looking at some of the highest absentee rates among students ever. We're going to see a lot of poor grades as a result of those absentee rates. It is imperative over the summer that all of the support systems, whether it's credit recovery at the high school level or tutoring to play catch up at the grade school level, be employed this summer. If we can afford it, we should do it. In addition, we should take this time over the summer to prepare our aging facilities to be able to accept our young people and teachers with modernized ventilation systems. We should not waste this crisis to do what needs to be done, not just for today, but for years to come. So, as you said, we were afraid in our discussions budgetarily that this was going to be a one-time appropriation and that we had 1 year as a municipality to recover, to get people back in restaurants, people in hotels, people back in business offices. But the way this is happening, it will give us more like a 2-year recovery period, for which, as one member of council, I am grateful. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. We're all grateful. Yes, much needed. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you, Council President. I was sitting here, kind of reflecting on my comments. I wasn't even prepared to make comments today as I was just taking this day in. But yesterday was a pretty rough day. The last couple of days have been pretty rough. But just echoing the sentiments of my colleague, Councilwoman Jamie Gardier, we are really in a state of a crisis right now. We are really losing too many young people to senseless gun violence. When I think about the work that we are doing, last week we introduced legislation to create a resource network around violence resources for young people and families so they don't have to address this issue of senseless gun violence alone without resources. I think about the Office of Victim Advocates, which is going to open up during this spring to help families who have lost loved ones to gun violence. I think about Kathleen Gilmore Richardson, who had penned a letter to the administration to make sure that during this upcoming budget session that every department has a plan around how they're addressing gun violence if we're giving them resources. I think about Councilwoman Jamie Gaudier, who said that we need to be in a state of emergency declared right now here in the city of Philadelphia, which is, we all know, long overdue. But I think about my constituents. When I'm out and about in the streets and I looked at the mother talking about how she lost her son, this was really a good kid. And it just reinforces how critically important it is that to those who have lost loved ones to gun violence, like, those families deserve justice. Like, we got this whole concept inside our neighborhoods that, you know, when these acts of violence happen, a lot of time it's quiet. But I just implore to the constituents that I represent, those who are listening, that if they see something, say something, right? Because that mother, that father, who are losing their loved ones to gun violence, that's a hole in their hearts that's never going to be replaced. And so there's a level of urgency in addressing this issue. But most importantly, what we don't always talk about around this issue is justice needs to be served to those family members who have lost loved ones to gun violence. And so I look forward to continuing working with my colleagues to figure out how do we get to the bottom of this issue. We're definitely going in the wrong direction. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and so we're fighting two different issues at one time. But it kept me up late last night, as it has done plenty of different nights, because at some point in time, it's like, you know, we represent the people, and we're doing the best that we can. But around this particular issue, we're not winning right now. And too many young people are dying to senseless gun violence. And so, you know, I employ the other leaders, law enforcement agencies, to aggressively stay on top of this issue like we're doing in City Council and wrap our heads around how we get to the bottom of it. Because we all know when it get hot outside during this upcoming summer, right, we see an uptick in gun violence. So there's no reason why that level of urgency, actually, it should have started last year, but we're not really preparing even more aggressively now before this summer comes. And so I'll keep everybody posted as I continue to work with my colleagues around this issue, but we got to get to the bottom of it, because if not, nothing else matters at all. And if anybody think I'm wrong about that, just go ask your constituents how they're feeling right now about the state of Philadelphia around this issue. And it's totally just unacceptable. So I just wanted to put that on the record, and I'll continue to work with my colleagues with some concrete ways on how we address it. But as a community as a whole, we got to all step up and make sure that we call for justice around a variety of different issues. Let's not call for justice for these young people being murdered here in the streets of Philadelphia. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Yes, it's time to take it to another level. Thank you. That appears to be all the speeches on behalf of the minority and the majority. So that being the case, Chair recognizes anybody else? Chair recognizes Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at 10 a.m.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded that the council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 18, 2021, 10 a.m. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you all very much, and be safe. And
Mr. President.
Absolutely.
I know our session has officially ended, but Mr. President, I failed in my comments to note for the record that as Councilmember Green was going through all of the specific areas that will be funded in the city of Philadelphia via the Rescue Act that our Philadelphia City Council technical team, when we find out what those dollars actually mean for the city of Philadelphia, because I think that's the question a lot of residents, are asking. $1.9 trillion, but what does it mean for our region, Septon, the school district? To our GISer, Greg Kingery, sorry to call him out, Mr. President, but they're going to be looking for a way to design it so that they can put it on Philadelphia City Council's website, and all of Philadelphia will be able to access it. So I apologize, Mr. President, for failing to include that in my remarks.
It's okay. Yeah, they've actually been in consultation with the city's budget department and finance chair to talk about the specifics and put the level of specificity out there for people in the public and for us. And we will obviously start having our conversations about adjusting our budget to reflect this very, very significant resource that's coming our way. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. Thank you all. Be safe.
All right, that was the Philadelphia City Council. You were just listening to City Council Live. An extended session took up pretty much most of our 3 hours for City Council Live. I didn't get a chance to get more public comment from you, the WURD listener, but I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week, which you heard in this City Council session. I'm Charles Ellison. I've been your anchor for City Council Live. We're about to head into the source. Please stay tuned into WURD for the source with Andrea Lawful Sanders. That is coming up next. In the meantime, you can go to hashtag City Council Live for some clips of coverage of what just transpired in Philadelphia City Council. Also, I'm at Ellison Report, hashtag Reality Check on Twitter.com. I want to thank Jordan Booth. He was sitting in for Troy Wilmore today. Fantastic job, Jordan. Really appreciate you. And that will be the end of this Reality Check week. I take the weekend off. I'll be back, God willing, on Monday, 10 a.m. sharp, here on WURD. And in the meantime, Philly and everyone else, please stay sharp, stay smart, but more importantly, please stay safe out there. All right? Have a good one. Take care.